text here. I have a baby shower I'm going to tomorrow. Not mine, but like
I wouldn't be going out of town for your baby shower.
Like, and if I were, it'd be Dallas. Like, it wouldn't be San Antonio.
Opposite direction.
Yeah, opposite direction. But what I'm
Further away than San Antonio, yet somehow still takes the same amount of time to get there.
So what we talked about before was like, so San Antonio is literally okay. To get to Dallas, it takes 3 hours. To get to Houston, it takes about 2 and some change.
Yeah.
But ultimately, and honestly, I think this applies to all the Texas cities. It doesn't make sense why it takes as long as it does to get to where you need to go. Especially San Antonio. San Antonio's really and truly 40 minutes to an hour. That's how it should be.
It should. In a perfect world.
In a perfect world. It's like this null and void zone where time just goes out the window and it takes like 2 hours. But it's not as far as Dallas or Houston. Make that make sense. Someone make that make sense.
I can't, bro. Like, it's always been one of those things where I think I have family that lives right as you enter San Antonio, like up by the IKEA in 1604.
Yeah.
And it still takes like an hour and a half to get there. And I'm like, I don't know if it's the construction or just like at a certain point, the wheels just stop.
And let's be very clear. You're in San Antonio for a reason. Like, you're not there just to be there. You're not like, yeah.
Unless you're from Eagle Pass. Then you're there just to be.
Like, you're in San Antonio for a reason. So that's your destination a lot of the times. But also, like, I don't get how, like, there was no reason for them to put San Antonio in where they did. They could have just moved it closer to Austin.
That's where the Alamo was, bro.
And made it some megaplex. Like,
Could have moved the Alamo to San Marcos. No one would have said anything.
You know what's funny is they did move an Alamo and nothing popped up over there.
I'm just I'm confused. Cause when you think of Dallas, it's the DFW area. They got Dallas and Fort Worth close to each other, right? When you think of and if you've never been to Dallas, it's huge. In the sense of DFW area is huge. The Metroplex.
I scratched the surface that weekend that we went, and I was like, that's enough.
Yeah. Growing up there, y'all can imagine. It's like you go to school, that's like 40 minutes away.
Every time I went to DFW to visit family or Paco, like, it's always a new area. Like, it's always this new part of the map that unlocks for me. It's like Elden Ring. Like, oh, this is it. This is nice. Downtown, you say? I thought that was downtown.
I mean,
no, that was Mansfield, bro.
You know what? You know what's funny is, like, usually I'm like, I don't know what the next time I'm going to Dallas is, but I know when I'm going back next time because it's also going to be around my birthday and it's going to be for y'all in.
Oh, hell yeah.
No,
you can't have my shirt.
AEW is taking up the Dallas Cowboys Stadium to throw at a wrestling event. But outside of that, I usually don't know when I'm going back to Dallas. And between now and the last time I went to Dallas, the things that I liked in Dallas are dead. But, I mean, that was 5 years ago.
Yeah, Six Flags is still there, bro.
I've never been to Six Flags in Dallas.
Really? Never been to Over Texas? I think that's my favorite one.
It's the better one, even though I haven't been to Fiesta.
Well, we're going in November as soon as you come back. You land that plane all jet lagged. It's like, all right, bro, let's wake you up. Put you on some coasters.
Niho! Arimasu! He's speaking a different language.
Well, hey, ladies and gentlemen, I do apologize for, I guess, basically how incompetent we've been this last month to a degree. We promised to give you 2 shows a week.
We got the brain scam, please.
It's just been hard.
Oh, no, time out, fuck it. I ain't apologizing for shit. Y'all get what you get. I was like, we here. We here, are we? All right. No, I'm kidding.
Well, we are here because we have not been here.
So just to give a little peel back, and it's just been, scheduling's been a little tough.
I got the gonorrhea.
And
don't stand too close to him.
That's why I've been wheeling myself further away.
It's just scheduling's been a little tough, not in like a bad way. Like, it's just if We just gotta figure out how to be more flexible and fluid in what timings work and whatnot. So I think it's not necessarily. Damn, I thought that was the door now. It's like Tuesday's fine. Thursday's just a little weird sometimes because I think people get a little busy with work and like some of us get off late too. So we're just trying to figure out how to make sure we flex that right. And then if something goes on Saturday, that's in the void. So yeah, you're a Friday.
Somehow, well, I guess we're in the void right now based on the amount of viewers we got. But thanks, guys, for showing up. We didn't expect anybody to show up. We are going to give you an Adam Excellence here today. But it just comes down to a point where TJ is leaving.
and really, I'm going to talk about whatever the fuck I want. Tossing some video game stuff.
Pretty much. But, I mean, we're going to try to give you a little bit more shows. We have a schedule for the rest of the month, at least, which is most of the time that you're gone, really.
Yeah. And that was the other thing, right? It's just... I'll be gone starting after next Tuesday, and then I'll be back in the middle of November. So, yeah. And, I just needed a break from... I'm kidding. No, I'm going on vacation. That's it. But no, yeah. So I'll be in the Dominican Republic after next Thursday. And... then I come back. I'll be back for a few days, but after I'm just here to work real quick, and then I go to Japan.
I didn't even know you were coming back.
Yeah, I'm here for 2 days basically. I come back on a Wednesday night and fly out on the Friday. So,
is that even enough time to respond to all the emails you'd probably have?
It's enough time to make sure that I get
that nothing's on fire.
Yeah, I fucking come in. Closing everything down and then leave.
All of you behave until I come back.
And I'm gone longer now.
Well, fortunately, it should all.
Here's the auto feeder.
It should all work out. And yeah, I'm wincing because I'm like, oh damn, I drank some water and my body got bowel movements going. So, I felt my body say, "What the fuck was this, bro?" I was like, "Oh god." But yeah, no. It
happens every time I have vegetables.
But I think that you have a
you're like Tommy. Then I'm about to start making you do shots of ginger.
But I mean real vegetables.
Oh.
Like if I buy the fresh organic ones or whatever that I have to actually prepare, I guess I'm fucking up. Maybe I shouldn't be washing them in chlorine. But if I buy frozen ones, I'm cool. If I drink a smoothie or juice, I'm usually fine. For whatever reason, just
nah, I eat some spinach.
Actual nutrition harms me.
I eat some spinach. My body's like, all right, dog. We're absorbing the nutrients right now. I'm like, ah. So,
TJ checking on emails for those 2 days.
This is that. That's actually what this month will be like. It's not necessarily emails. I just have a lot of learnings to do, and I'm kind of a perfectionist on things when it comes to that kind of stuff. So. Yeah, it's just been a lot. Today, I had I was working on this thing all day, and I'm still not done. I'm like, oh my gosh, it shouldn't take me this long to do this one thing.
Oh, that's me with my case notes, so I get it.
Yeah, it's but then I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, worst comes to worst, I'll just make sure I submit it tomorrow, and but I want to make sure. I was like, it's due Friday, so I'm like, I'll make sure I get this in Friday, but yeah, I'm figuring it out. We're making it work.
Yeah, my plan is to work, but I don't know when, because I already planned tomorrow. I'm going to go to the gym, hang out, and then there's a wrestling pay-per-view. So I'm like, somewhere in between there, I need to finish 2 of my cases.
That's how I feel. It's
well, you're in the void. You're not coming back until 6 or 7 p.m. tomorrow.
Yeah, I I didn't think about the comeback. Being honest with you, I
live in San Antonio now.
I didn't even calculate that, really.
The comeback is worse.
Yeah, because then you have to deal with the void of time that is Live Oak and shirts, and the void that is all of Austin traffic.
Oh, God. Hey yo! Shout out to the baby shower. I love y'all, so I'm coming through.
I'm so glad we live like on mile marker 230 or something like that.
Yeah, like there are definite perks of South Austin that because I was like, I really like North Austin for a lot of things. And if you ever lived in Austin, there's like basically there's a few areas. There's North, There's South. There's Central. Hyde Park, which is like Central North. And then there's West Austin. And if you're in West Austin, can you give me a loan? And you're wondering like, oh, where's East Austin? Well, there's East Austin quotation marks, and then there's whatever the fuck's after 183. We don't know what that is. That's not real.
I get sent there a lot now.
I know. Bro, I see neighborhoods on a map, and I'm like, those aren't real.
I think there's a water treatment plant there. I only know that because I applied for it.
I wanted to treat that water.
I wanted to get money, bro.
Money's overrated. Really, I'm kidding.
Only someone with money says that.
Only the guy that's about to go to Japan after hanging out on a beach for 2 weeks?
For a week. Look, when I say it out loud, because when I say it out loud, it sounds so pretend. But I've been saving for this trip, so it wasn't like.
Yeah, I wish I could save.
Said, what the fuck?
I told JJ this, so I don't feel too bad. But I had there's been a rash of people that got unemployed in the last 10 months. I would say, like, of the other podcast crew, I would probably guess about 12 of them got let go from their position. But it was funny because one of them made this comment, and it was just kind of, I was like, as somebody that went through a period of unemployment, I'm like, that's 100% true. It's like, damn, being unemployed is like only being able to do side missions because you're locked out of the main one.
Yeah.
It's very true. And
What can I do now that I'm unemployed? Back to school? Yeah.
It's like
raise your intelligence stat.
Yeah, I don't like
to grind out a couple of certificates here.
I don't like the cutscenes in that route. No, that's real. And I've been in the same shoes, and I left my I left my last job coming into this one as well. So it's always a fascinating thing, and I it's so interesting because and as someone who's like, just taking a little sidestep here, someone who's like really into some budgeting stuff, it's so fascinating how like when you get into a savings routine, I don't want to understate how hard it is to get into like a saving state. Mm-hmm. But when you get into a saving state, you're like, feels good, everything's clicking, and then something goes wrong. Not even that.
How did all 4 of my tires go out?
Yeah, I'm like, bro.
Check engine light on that car will come up real quick.
I'm telling you,
bro. That happened to me already. But then I hit this bump super fast and it cleared up.
That's what I'm saying. You want to know? You want to know what cars come in clutch? So I tell people, it's like, fuck all the other cars. Get a Toyota when you broke. Toyota says, what's a light? What's a check engine?
Toyotas have healing factor.
Motherfucker says, I'm with you.
My check engine light came on for like a week, and then I messaged my cousin Paco because he knows about cars. I was like, bro, like, what? And he's like, do you feel the car running any different at all? And I was like, no, it's probably just an evap sensor. It's like your gas sensor is fucked up. It's a bitch to fix, but like, if it's running fine, then it's running fine. Like, it's not important. Cool. And then, I hit like a turn too fast or something. And the next time I got into my car, like, the light was gone. And I messaged Paco. He's like, yeah, you probably hit a bump or something really hard. Sometimes that'll like knock it loose.
See, and we have opposite because my car, so Michaela's car, just got 2,000, like a lot of money put into it. I said, this is a 2005 Toyota Camry. If something else happens on this thing goes, we're fucking of mice and manning this. Look out into the field, honey. But my car, is 2019 Honda Elantra. The motherfuckers just like, hey, bro, you got me during COVID, so you really ain't do shit with me. I'm like, I ain't do shit with you. I don't know what, like I've driven it. I feel like a fair bit over the last, few years.
Yeah.
No lights, no nothing. It's just there, just exists. I'm like, when something, but you'd be like, oh, that's pretty cool. It's high quality. Something happened. No, that gives me fear because when something goes wrong, it's just gonna go wrong. Everything's gonna hit at once.
Everything's gonna fall out. You need a whole new axle now, bro.
But that's
If your Toyota needs a whole new axle, you just put that one down.
Yeah.
But going to your point, right? I think it's such a fascinating thing to be in a situation where, like, this is the most excited I've been to go on consecutive trips. Like, I'm excited to be going. On the same note, man, it's just hard to spend that money, right? Because you're like, but what if? That what if makes them take. Because I just bought my tickets yesterday. And let me tell you, that what if hit. I said, but what if one of these animals coughs? I said, that's my whole account. Because
You won't even know about it. You're just gonna come back to a dead animal.
we have a hierarchy, right? I have a personal hierarchy. And I've
One's
said-
gonna eat the other one.
they don't just get left alone. They go to a sitter. But like, I have a personal hierarchy, right? Because the dog is mine. So I said, hey, look, the dog got here first. He, and I always said I didn't justify putting a lot of money into a dog, but then sometimes I look at his eyes and I'm like, all right, look, he's the one who gets the budget. He's a AAA game. All the budget. And then we have that kitten that's a temporary roommate that's still there, and I'm like, you're an indie.
The cat is Flappy Bird.
Yeah. He already has cat AIDS, so I sit there and I'm like, I don't know what to do with you, man. You get sick, we screwed. And then the cat, Michaela actually considers her cat, got it, whatever. I'm like, bro, you got like $2,000 worth of dental work done already. Like, you've got your money.
Wait, what? The cat had dental work?
And I said, that's what I said. I said, because, Michaela was dedicated to it. She's like, I want to get this cat's teeth fixed.
TJ, I want to say most of the people in this podcast are responsible, and 2 of us have got dental work.
That's what I'm saying. I was like,
Oh my god, I'm one of them.
I was like, that motherfucking cat has gone to the dentist for more money than I have. I was confused, but it was like rotting. She just got a street cat, and I said, pick a better cat next time.
You put it back on the street.
Because
We're friends now. We're gonna have us soft tacos later.
and I will say, I said, and I was trying to be a good boyfriend whenever we first got the cat.
Mistake number 1.
Yes. There's multiple things I have feeling after having multiple pets. Number one pet's enough. 1 pet is enough. 2 is expensive. But one, a cat and a dog can make it work out. I don't understand how people have multitude of any animal. Fuck that. I'm good. 1 and 1 is good.
Fish is about it.
No, fuck them motherfuckers too. My brother has a bunch of fish, lovely fish tanks, beautiful, like to be in his crib. I never want that.
Not the cat having a dental plan.
Bro,
Dental plan. The cat needs braces.
motherfucker got dental, Delta Dental. I'm like, you bro, got an insurance plan. What you mean? But now, so I'm sitting there and, with pets, second thing would be get yourself street animals because they're just immune to shit. Like, if something's wrong with dog, something's wrong with dog. Motherfucker was coughing up blood one time. I'm talking coughing up blood. I was like, pooping it out. I was like, oh, man, something's terrible. Went to fucking vet. They were like, oh, man, his stomach's just upset. I'm like, what the fuck is that type of upset stomach? What does that mean? And so now, motherfucker just looks at me. He's like, I'm not, I'm sick, but I'm not sick. And I'm like, all right, we understand now. But I think the biggest thing is, man, go with your partner when you go and evaluate these animals. Whenever I got Maka, that's my dog. He and I met him in my neighborhood. So I got to meet him, do all the whole 9. She was the one who pushed me over the edge of getting the dog. Because I was like, man, we just moved. It was like right when we moved into the apartment, we had no furniture. Mm-hmm. Like the furniture was like we were buying it, ordering it. So the dog got in before we had couches. I'm talking that type of shit. But then what was even crazier was, what was even more interesting was when, we got him, and everything worked out. He came in, he was probably he was great. So then I always said that the cat was actually supposed to be the first pet we get because I was like, yeah, Michaela cares about pets more, so, go ahead. But I let her, I was like, oh, no, I don't want to have any opinion on the cat you get, all that kind of stuff. No, that was stupid. That was stupid. Not because Zenya's a bad cat. She's actually probably one of the better cats. She doesn't jump on shit. She has no motivation to jump on my shit, except the couch that she gets on and the places she knows she's supposed to jump on. But it was more so because I come back and that motherfucker has $2,000 worth of dental work. Like, I'm like, how did you do that? Like, you didn't go up. Be like, and then 3, kittens suck. Kittens suck.
I was about to say, for $2,000, I feel like you can just rip out all those teeth and give them like a metal, like, this is what you're gonna have from now on.
I'm telling you, for $2,000, for $500, I'm like, baby, the next time, again, I wasn't on my P's and Q's. I was just so flabbergasted. I'm like, hey, next time, shit, we'll just drive down to Mexico. Someone gonna figure out something for $500.
Oh yeah, no.
Someone will figure. I'm like, someone will figure out. Veterinarians, they'll find something to do.
All my sister's animals, Mexico.
Yeah.
All their shots, Mexico.
I'm like, that is actually something that's so funny. Like when you put people on game and you're like, you're white and new, aren't you? It's a wonderful place where you can get competent dental work done for very cheap.
$50.
So,
That was my first crown.
and still working, ain't it?
Yeah. Well, my fancy Austin dentist replaced it because I had the silver, like just the plain metal crown, as it's the bottom molar, and my Mexico dentist was like, all the porcelain I got is like for show, not for chew. So we're going like full steel on this one.
So this is a picture of a dog, but I just imagine your cat has a grill like this.
There's just nothing there.
It's a James Bond villain, bro.
I mean, when I can start to afford putting grills on my cat, that'll be a day, huh? But this all
That's something that rappers haven't done at this point.
I think that's child sells animal abuse.
Well, I mean, that
Or
cop
maybe
just
not.
did it.
I don't fucking know. If I saw a dog with like diamond teeth,
That
I'm
was
scared.
a cop dog?
That was a cop dog.
It's to bite harder.
Like fucking didn't know dogs come with fucking equipment. Like, but it all goes back to it's like needless to say, pets are expensive. Life is expensive. It's only getting more expensive. And I definitely like feel shit. I was like skipped one paycheck, like or a couple, one paycheck and some change, and I was sitting there. I was like, no, God, my world just comes crashing down. And I have places and other things. You just have to like make it work. But if needless, going back to the source of it. Going on trips, doing all that, like I was happy I was able to make it work, and ultimately I will never regret it. Like I don't think there's ever a situation where, unless come back and the lights are off. I said I would never regret it. But if anyone ever wants some tips on how to make travel work when you're trying to also be financially conscientious, let me know. I travel. Obviously, I travel quite a bit. And I feel like I did a good job of making 2 trips work at the same time because, good gosh, I was like, I don't know if I can ever, I don't know if I've ever done that again.
$1,000 for golden retriever. See, your problem there is like you can type any breed for the most part, and then type rescue afterwards, and then you'll find that they may be not great because in general mutts are way better than purebred dogs, but you can there's a golden retriever rescue. I have friends that worked for them. Yeah,
I'm not the type of guy to judge people for like get what you want. Like it's your money, it's your investment. Semicolon, however, having nothing but rescues. Like I hear my friends who like have like the purebred, they went through the breeder, spent the money, did all the whole 9. The motherfuckers suck. All right, not from a like cute dog, like like super sweet. And you're gonna like your dog no matter what. But I be hearing like whenever talking about vet bills and whatnot, I'm like,
yeah, he's a purebred, so we have to get his hips replaced when he's 2.
I'm like, my dog has street knowledge and street stomach. Like he has street environments. Tick-borne illness.
I heard an argument the other day about who has the best college mascot, and they just basically did like a versus until they got to the best one. But one of them was the Georgia Bulldog came up, and they were like, Georgia has one of the best veterinarian schools in the country. And they can't keep that dog alive for longer than 4 or 5 years.
Damn, you're right. It's damn, that's so true. I've never thought about that. But that's really how it works with some of these things. It's like you start to appreciate. Because I've contemplated like what happens after because motherfucker's just built like Teflon. He's gonna be around for a while. But I was like, what happens after him? I don't ever want another dog, but who knows? Who wouldn't click with me? But I'd only ever rescue because it's just seeing how much he just came and was like, this is good. Now, granted, again, I don't know how you're gonna pan out. And anything can happen with animals, but it was just kind of an interesting experience, just seeing some people who've purchased a dog, and versus just kind of getting it up right. Because I appreciate some of the other nuances, like he's weird about using the restroom inside, so we never had to go through that struggle.
Damn, that's a good one.
Yeah, he does not. It's because we have hardwood, and he can't use the restroom on hard. Like he just is not equipped to. Hardwood, whatever the fuck,
Oh yeah.
What's in our living room? Yeah, we got it.
Yeah, right. So it's so fascinating because I'm like, man, I need more dogs like this. The ones that are built weird with. He goes on the carpet. He's like, yeah, maybe. So I've now had it in the back of my mind when I buy a house. That's what I'm gonna do. But yes, I did. Bransdale. Yes, it'll be the full. It's the layovers in LAX, and then it's like 12 hours after that.
That's not that bad.
Or 12 to 4. I don't fucking know. Bro, the fucking flight time works so weird.
Well, you're literally going to tomorrow?
You're
going to
crossing several times.
You're going to tomorrow, and then when you come back, you land at the exact same time you left.
Oh wow, that's
so it's so fast. Like so, that's just so weird because so I'll leave. So it's interesting because there's a bit of a like just how Austin and just how the timing works here. Like literally, when I leave Japan, it'll be 8 p.m. and then I get here, it'll be the same day at 8 p.m. So it's like you don't lose time, right? Like you
get a day back.
Like but you lose a day when you're going there, right?
Which is like not the worst.
You banked a day, and you get a.
It just makes it so. It just makes it so interesting because like Kate was asking a question. It's like, why is it 15 hours coming back, and then it's like however
30 something hours going over there.
No, there are 30-hour flights. Fuck that. But it was like,
oh, I meant like in the sense that it's like it's 2:00 on Tuesday. When we land, it'll be 5:00 on Thursday. What the fuck?
And then I'll make it easy for anyone, right? If you want to know the time, like that it is in Japan, or that you'll land in Japan, all you got to do is Japan's 14 hours, right? So it's like you take 14 hours. Yeah, add that to you add that to the travel time. Like, and like that's kind of like how it works out to making sense. Whatever that total is how much time is like you're jumping ahead, kind of, sorta. Not really. I'll explain it later.
I've been to Thailand. I already know how it works. Yeah. You don't gotta explain to me. You gotta explain to maybe the audience, but I've definitely already done that.
Yeah.
I've crossed the date line, which was funny because when we did it,
I follow, and then when I fly back, I have to stop my future self from letting my dad die. So that
you missed the part where we're on the plane. You have to fight your future self.
Only one gets to exist.
Same matter cannot exist in the same space.
On that note, when I went to Thailand, it was with the army. So when we landed, there was a funny story where it was when we were leaving, it was one of my friend's birthday, and Granny got. Like, basically, because the army is kind of gay sometimes, they spanked the shit out of him. Like, they pulled his pants down and spanked him with belts. And it was like, all right, it's over. And we landed in Alaska, and it was still his birthday. So they beat the shit out of him.
Belly. Boys.
You know what's funny? And I have a question for you, actually.
Yeah.
I was watching some other guy who went back to where they were stationed while they were in the army, and like it was glazed over. Like when it's international, they're like it was wonderful.
Yeah.
Had a great time in the army. Glazed over for like 5 seconds, and they're like, and now I'm back. It's like it's gonna be awesome. I'm like, y'all army dudes must have great times in international countries that are not. Let me phrase that: the fun international country.
I was about to say I've never told any of the Thai stories. I'm waiting for the right time. Maybe next year.
I'm waiting for the right time and the right amount of alcohol to communicate.
Well, I remember and it was just Sam being Sam at one point, but he was just like, Los Angeles is the most fun place in the Pacific, and I was like, sir.
Pacific,
sir.
like ocean?
Yeah.
Oh, come on. Like, Pacific Northwest. I was like, I don't even think it counts as that, right?
No.
Like Pacific Coastline, maybe, but like
the whole Pacific Ocean in the entire no.
Go to Asia one time. I was like, take your pick.
Well, Johnny, friend of the podcast, is always like, "Oh, you're having a rough time? Go to Thailand, bro. You ever want to look at $100 and wish it was 3,300? Go to
Thailand."
You're saying I should move to Thailand.
You don't want to move. You want to visit Japan. You may want to move to because they have a
dollar houses where an old couple died and had no children.
I was going to say they have more infrastructure. I don't know anything about it. How easy it is to immigrate. Thailand, you can immigrate to pretty easily, but it's like, so I had a friend that lived
Japan
in
Japan don't want you there.
No,
Yeah,
Japan does not.
They want you to visit.
Yeah.
They want you to visit as much as you want to.
They don't. They really don't want me to own property over there.
But Thailand, I met a guy that he was from actually Australia, but he just moved to Thailand, bought a bar with the money that he had saved up. He was like, well, I mean, it's better than going to a home. And I was like, yeah.
Oh yeah.
But Thailand, they don't really care. It's just at a certain point, I had a friend that lived in Vegas, and he was like, yeah, I don't do anything Vegas.
I have a friend who acted in Vegas, and he's like, nah. What we do is what Vegas people do is totally different than what everyone else does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
he goes to hang out at their local Denny's and stuff. It does. It's I don't want anything to do with the Strip.
I never worked in Vegas, but I have worked in a casino, and I can tell you, did not spend any time there.
It's
even after I left the casino and I was, free to drink and do whatever the fuck I wanted as a customer there, went twice.
I think that's just an exposure thing. Because when I worked in a pizzeria, I didn't eat pizza.
Yeah.
I still hesitant on. I think I've worked it out. But there was a 3-year period.
I just realized in all the fat things we talk about, pizza's never high on your list. Damn, that explains so much.
I had a pizzeria for years. I was a bartender and a pizza. They had a bar in the back of the pizzeria.
Yeah, alcohol doesn't work on that element.
Yes. But no, I because I've said this before too on the show. It's just it's fascinating, and I going on my spiel. I just like when people travel outside of the country, especially to some of the Asian countries, just because
it's so different.
It's so different, and you come back and you appreciate things, and you I think international travel never does a situation where you have a net you don't come back with a net benefit and a net negative. Mm-hmm. What I mean by that is you're gonna come back and you'll be like, man, I appreciate a couple of these things, and you're like, damn, this thing was way better. That country was just
7-Eleven.
Don't get me started.
I feel like everyone should visit an English adjacent country, like Australia.
Yes.
Dope. If you can visit England. And then you need to visit something completely different. Something South America, Asia, Africa. You need to get completely immersed in something for a little bit.
You gotta do to your point, you just gotta do something where you're like, hey, I'm not worried. First of all, I'm gonna tell you honestly, if you're ever worried about a language barrier, unless it's some really off-kilter country, if you're just hey, you want to go to I usually use an Asian country, for example. If you're ever worried about the language barrier, don't be, for the most part. If you're going to one of the major, Korea, Japan, Thailand, that's your least of your problems. Even India,
you can get around with a phrase book most of the time,
or Google Lens.
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
And then on the inverse, right? But English countries give you the security of, all right, I can navigate this. I can understand the language, and I can understand language to a certain degree. I'm in Australia, but I've heard positive things. I've been to the UK, and the UK is dope.
The fuck is a Tim Tam?
You gotta slam it. But the other part is, like I said, like I think it kind of unlocks like something in your brain where you're like, you know, you have an option more than you think you do for a lot of places.
Yeah, exactly.
And it like and I think people would rather dwell like I think it's easy to get caught and be like, I'm unhappy in my environment, right? And and then only think of like, well shit, if I go to anywhere, like I use Texas as an example. It's hard to move away from Texas, not in the sense of like anything other than other places cost way more. It's like it's hard and you know, outside of like if you weren't considering family and all those things, it's like
Also, it's so big.
it's big, right? And so like you can have options and things of that nature. I don't dislike Austin, it's not like that. But you'll be like anytime I've been like, oh yeah, maybe New York for a while. It's like, but like my dollar is like $4. I mean, my dollar is like 4 cents. Let me phrase that.
Yeah.
Well, that's why my plan one day is to escape to Milwaukee, where my dollar is $2.
$2. Right? But on the inverse, right? When you think of other countries, not to say it's easy to go to these other countries, but like if you're especially like, there's a lot more programs than you think to like okay, use New Zealand for example. If you're like under the age of 31, you can go over there and you can they have like work visas that you can and then. If you're going to be doing bartending and studying and living life, you might as well do it a year in another country where they'll help you get a job and figure out that situation too.
I had a lot of friends that were lower class in the sense that like it wasn't paid by their parents, but all they did was just get a job teaching English in China, Germany, and they got to see a completely different country. Yeah.
And I think it's something that I like subtract the COVID years. Because that just kind of threw a wrench into a lot of plans. But it's like, oh, like I wish I could have hopped on some of those things earlier, right? Like when you have that freedom and flexibility. And then on the inverse, even when like I think people are like, oh, I'm getting older, I want to settle down and figure things out. And this also comes in with the caveat of like, I know that I have the international parent perspective. So like having family internationally isn't like a weird thing. Like cross-ocean international type of thing where it's like, oh, like, I don't see motherfuckers unless I can make it work. You know what I mean? But just there's always ways and countries that want you there and countries that like, and I remember watching this story, even if you're like thinking of more of the Europe, like there's this woman who was like, yeah, if I stayed in America, I don't even have a retirement. She's like, I went to Italy and, I can live, like, in like 50s. And she's like, yeah, like, I'm good. I don't need to work. Like, I'm working because I want to. Yeah. That type of thing. And that's such a fascinating thing because...
Well, it's funny, and it came from the little bit of time that I spent where I dated a German woman, but she always laughed at things where... Because most movies are American for the most part. I would say that are famous or like 90% American. And they always have this very American ideology that leaks into the movies. And obviously, in some ways, it's very obvious, and in some ways, it's very discreet. One of the ways that it was very discreet was like, we watched like Green Lantern, which was a terrible movie. But it's just like, oh, humans are new to the universe. Like, I understand we're a new people and everything is like still new to us and we're learning, but we can grow. And she just laughed at that. And I was like, why'd you laugh at that? And it's like, that's totally just an American thing where you guys have only been around for 200 years. But I go home and it's like, yeah, this castle has been here for like 2,000 years or some shit like that.
That's what I was saying. Like I think when we were at the samurai
exhibit,
that was just blowing me away. Like the craziest thing about Japan is just like you're there and you're like, oh shit, half this shit's been here forever. I'm like, oh god. The same thing in the UK. Like in England.
There's a bunch of UK YouTubers I watch. Well, because a lot of them are into wrestling, so I watch them for their wrestling content. But whenever they come into the States for an event, like a big one like WrestleMania or something, they'll comment on, one, our food rocks, especially compared to UK food. But two, they're like, it's so weird how like everything there is kind of like new to us. Because like for us, 100 years old not that old. Like, that building's been here for 100 years. Like, okay, cool. It's a pretty new building, I guess. But when you go to America, 100 years, that's an old building. Like,
That's ancient.
they don't stay up that long.
Bro, I like, because you think about it, somebody was like, oh yeah, I bought this house from like the 1950s. And I said,
Yeah.
huh? Because look, there's like and that perspective even switches depending on where you are in America. Because here in Texas, we're like, fuck you, mean 1950s. Half this shit was not around in the 1950s. They do new builds a lot here.
I had a friend go to the UK, and it was funny because he just went on a stroll. He was like, he wanted to check out some like the local stores, whatever it was. There was just a random castle, and it was just like, oh yeah, the lord that lived here wasn't important, so like you can just go hang out there if you want for the day. And it's like that. It was still a full-fledged castle with like ramparts and everything, and
But also, you could, just smoke weed and play Burnout Revenge for the PS2.
but like you come to America and our actual historical things, it's like, yeah, these 3 wooden beams over here used to be part of a cabin, and Abraham Lincoln studied here.
Yeah.
Like it's random, like
Then a
little.
tornado hit it.
Can't have nice shit. But I've always
This empty field. This is Gettysburg.
the first time I felt like that history click in America was when I went to Washington D.C. for the first time, and you go there and you're like, this feels cool. This, like, you go into the Northeast and you're like, this is like, all right, I'm starting to see some of the things that like you're like doesn't happen in a lot of America, just because that just isn't a thing that was there. I am envious that we don't have more castles. I don't think
I went to the oldest building in America, in Washington D.C., and it was a wooden cabin. When it comes to castles, you said we got one somewhere.
Oh no, I was gonna. Well, we do. There's a couple of weirdos, rich, eccentric.
Oh, okay, that's not a real castle.
But I was
a billionaire,
we have the fucking haunted Winchester Mansion. I want to go there.
I said if I was a billionaire, I'd be building castles around. Yeah. Like, just like, what the fuck does he keep on building castles for?
Another thing, in reference to like old buildings and stuff,
California doesn't count. North Carolina.
I've been rewatching Columbo, and it's really interesting because Columbo is such an old show. It's from like 69, 70, 1969, 70s, around there. Most of it is in the 70s, but it's really weird to like watch an episode and then there's this YouTuber that'll do like commentary on the episode and like will summarize it and be like, you see that background actor? He shows up in like 10 more episodes and his name is blah blah blah. It gives a whole thing about it. But there's a couple of episodes where it's like, this person was born in the year 1900. What? Like, that blows my mind because it's like, oh yeah, well, the show is in the 70s. It was before I was born, but we already had this technology, to broadcast stuff, and it's so weird to like go back and watch this old thing and to hear like dates. Yeah, like this guy was born 1900 on the dot. We're gonna find 2 more people that are older than him.
That's actually kind of.
Found a castle in Galveston.
Oh yeah,
count. These don't count.
They don't count.
I want that like.
But even in like the 1970s wasn't that long ago in the grand scale of things. Even in those episodes of Columbo that I've been rewatching, is like, this house doesn't exist anymore. We tore it down.
That is something that I don't think
Gets talked about enough that we tear down.
that we are
of,
not like.
Yeah.
America's not good at preserving history at all. Now, granted, there's a lot of reasons for that, for other things. But like, to avoid that conversation, I just don't think we're really good at preserving or making the effort to preserve things, but not necessarily.
Sometimes we don't see the value in it.
No,
Because like, no one at the time, television was disposable content, right? Like, no one could have seen like DVDs and video distribution and streaming in the future, right? Like, anyone who was making that show back then or any show back then couldn't have seen that coming. So yeah, when they get to rent out a house or they build a set that's actually like a fully functioning house, they're like, well, yeah, tear it down. We don't need it no more. We wrap the show.
So I kind of want to say like one of my favorite things that was torn down. So it was torn down immediately, like after they found out about it. But because it's October, we can get to be a little bit spooky. Do you know who H.H. Holmes is?
Yes.
I know JJ would. Because JJ knows so much about crime. He knows everything that happened to Aaron Hernandez before I did.
I didn't know that fucker played football. I was like, damn. Surprise.
Michaela was here. She would.
Well,
I let her, like, if something's like, I was like, oh, crime, I'll let this one talk.
so the England has Jack the Ripper.
Fun fact.
Well, that's also a thing. But we have H.H. Holmes, which doesn't get a lot of the shine. But he was a dude that would straight up, he owned a hostel.
Yeah.
And he turned it into the Saw House. Like, after they caught him, there was traps all over the place and things like that.
He had a gas chamber, bro.
He had a gas chamber where he
like it looked like a bedroom. But
whenever you hear that we are living in the worst of times, like the people are so much worse today, remember that a man existed 140 years ago that literally created a gas chamber with a window so he could watch you suffocate and masturbate while you died.
First of all, y'all taking this show in a very different order. Like, where we going? We are on a fun old time.
let me get my fun fact in real quick. There is a very slight, small, tiny, minuscule probability that H.H. Holmes was also Jack the Ripper. He was in England at the time of the Ripper murders. And then he immigrated to the U.S. and built his hostel, his murder palace. And that lines up with the Ripper murders ending.
Serenity, no, they are 100%. There might be somebody that is killing people now, but you don't get away with mass murder on the what H.H. Holmes was doing. Because back then, it's just kind of like we didn't have social security numbers or anything.
There was no DNA. You could just move to like 2 towns over and be like, I'm Bob now.
Well, literally, most of the heroes we learned about in Texas history were like, yeah, bro, I kind of was a shitty dad in Tennessee, so I just moved to Texas.
Well, here I'm rewarded for my shitty for my rootin' tootin' attitudes.
But when they found out what H.H. Holmes was doing in that house, they just burned it down. And I was like, that would have been like a cool thing.
No, burn it down. I agree with them.
There's a book about him.
Like Devil in the White City. I had to read it.
We cast Zeta Fire, you know, like we're there for that. Oh no, that's not it. Yeah. People do that.
Yeah, people do that for sure.
Shit, the internet's debaucherous.
Pretty sure the Ripper did that.
Yeah, the internet is a debaucherous place, which feeds into too many things. I don't want to get into a conversation about the internet. To taking a couple points back, actually, I had a question to ask you, and I think it was at the top of what initiated the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you could, like, while you were, this is not you currently, you Marcos, Army Marcos. Was there anywhere else you wanted to be stationed, or that you heard was at least a cool place to be stationed?
So I'm gonna be honest. Like you get a wish list, and for my wish list, I did put Alaska just because of the very terrible comedy movie Out Cold.
I had a lot of options and said,
first of all, none of my options are good. That Anchorage is literally the third best option, even if you were like neutral on where you go, because you don't want to get sent to Buffalo. Like,
okay. I guess
north of Buffalo. It's the middle of nowhere. Buffalo is the closest city, but it snows more at Fort Drum than it does in Fort Rich. Yeah, no, you're basically
in Canada.
Where else could I be at station? I to this day, and I'm still learning to try to get over it. Like, I hate the South. Like, Louisiana is as far as I'll go, but I have no fucking reason to ever go to Mississippi, Georgia, Alabama ever again.
I don't have any reason to go to Mississippi.
Yeah.
Or Alabama.
I kind of,
Yeah.
I kind of have a reason to go to Arkansas, but also not really.
Well, Arkansas is a little bit. It is the South.
I have to
but
go to
it's a little
Georgia
more
to like,
this
pay
way.
my respects to
Yeah,
black
no.
people.
I
That's
want to
it.
go to Texarkana.
Well, you can do that.
Yeah, that's still in the state.
Yeah.
But it's not going to happen this year because of my employment. But I would like to try maybe next year. There was an actual series of unsolved murders that happened in Texarkana. And I don't want to go because of the murders, really. But
Back up
Sounds like you want to
vertebrae.
go to visit.
the murders tie into it. Because they made in the 60s, I think, maybe 50s, they made a horror movie based off the murders, right? The murders happened in like the late 1800s, and then, film happens, color happens, and producers find out about this story of murders in this small town in Texarkana. That's not something anyone's ever really done before. So they make a movie, and they filmed it in Texarkana. And now the city has really embraced it. And they're like, yeah, come on over. We're going to screen it for free on Halloween. Watch this movie about this horrible history that
No,
this
no,
horrible thing that happened.
no. Stop glorifying and making murders cool.
The movie.
Hey, man, there's a lot of white women that do that way better.
I'm not saying you.
I don't want to go because of the murders. I just think that having a public screening, that's something historical. Granted, it's a very dark and bad part of the history, but the movie's cool.
So, Duke the Ronin brought up North Carolina. So, North Carolina, Fort Bragg is all right. Like, you're pretty close to some things. Here's the best thing about Alaska that you would only understand if you were in the Army. There's no generals on my base. We are an outpost with 2 battalions. Everything else has whole divisions. So, we were a lot more lax. Like, we actually got to grow our hair long and stuff like that, like, than it would have been anywhere else.
In Alaska.
No, anywhere, the unit that I was in Fort Rich compared to any of the other bases, because they have whole divisions there. Where I was, there was just 2 battalions, and I was like, sweet, like, I'm happy here. Also, you're in a city, so the only way that happens is Fort Bragg or the place that's on everyone's, like, silver star is... It's in Colorado. I forgot what it's called off the top of my head. Fort Collins is a pretty good place to get stationed. Everybody that goes there loves it. Hawaii ends up in a lot of people's wish lists, but they're like, you do everything in 6 months. Like, living in Hawaii when you're an average American isn't great, and all the locals hate you.
Yeah.
And then Italy is also high on most people's list, but I didn't want to pay $3,000 for a plane ticket to come home for Christmas.
So that's why you didn't do international.
Well, I mean, I still got to be international because for some reason Alaska and Hawaii are considered international duty stations, but I didn't want to.
They're not in the continental.
Yeah, they're not in the continent. But that was why I didn't want to get stationed there. The Vicenza does actually not have any generals there either, so that would have been a better place. But
Is that Italy?
yeah,
So you
But I
said
was-
Italy.
yeah, Italy is good.
So you okay?
You said Vicenza. He just didn't do the thing.
I'm just always
You
interested.
got to do the thing.
I'm always interested in like how people, well, not necessarily how, but like what influences. Because I know you. There's sometimes where you don't have control, right? But
Yeah.
but the instances where you do, like why you pick where you pick. And do you feel like, and I guess out of the branches, who gets the most amount of like kind of flexibility?
Air Force.
Yeah, definitely.
Air Force is
I was
100%
in
like
the
you're not.
Army, and I know this.
Air Force is like, it's not even a military branch. Like you don't call people by their rank. It's like, hey, what's up, Bob?
Yeah.
Like,
Why didn't you do the Air Force?
well,
I probably would have done the Air Force because they pay for your LASIK.
They all pay for your LASIK. The Army could have paid for my LASIK. The only thing is,
It's never too late.
when I went to the Army, they found out. They said my the layer was too thin, and you could go blind if they fucked it up. So I didn't do it. But they all pay for your surgery.
The one that I heard mostly was Air Force, just because like you can't fly a plane if you can't see.
Well, you don't. So we found out afterwards, like one of the coolest jobs that you could probably get is probably be a door gunner. Then you're just kind of like, you just go out, do your thing, and then you go back. Like then you
Yeah,
gotta
it's
go.
a Call of Duty.
Yeah, you gotta go chill in your hotel room afterwards. Whereas I got to stay in a hole in the ground. Fun fact, just because you brought up LASIK, it just reminded me of one of my favorite stories that my friend Perch was married. And when you come back from a deployment, you have about 8 months where it's just kind of like, hey, you're going through rehabilitation, getting time off, and you're just doing easy shit. You're mostly just cleaning for those 8 months, not a lot of training. And so you get to do elective things. That's when I try to get the LASIK surgery and things like that. So the elective surgery that my friend Perch got is like he got home and his wife was like, hey, it'd be really nice if you got circumcised.
Immediate divorce. I'm out.
So
Why does it matter now?
That's what I'm saying.
I have questions. What made you change?
So he was like, why would I get circumcised? And it's like, well, if you do, I'll give you head twice every week from now on.
Is this in the contract?
Baby.
Yeah, also, I'm married.
Baby, I don't know if you got high marks on math, but 2 times 0 is still 0.
Yeah. Talking to you twice more than I do now. I wasn't getting it before. Also, why are you so eager now? And that doesn't solve my initial inquiry.
And then he was like, nah, I don't know about that. That's a lot. Like, I'm an adult 22-year-old man. Having scissors around my stuff is not going to be great. And then the wife actually did the research and was just kind of like, hey, if you do it, you get 2 weeks off. And he's like, done.
That's actually the most convincing argument. Hold on, where's that?
I probably would have thought
Damn that. So, I guess, and you know what? And like, that's it. Themexcellence. It's Compas now. Okay, look, I'm curious. I'm curious. I'm curious from the perspective of like, and for full disclosure, it's not that like, I like, I'll ask. I'm gonna ask you a bunch of your army questions. A bunch.
Oh, you're fine.
Yeah, so I'm curious. I'm genuinely curious about some things. Why aren't you still in the army? Why didn't you just? Is it, and not in saying it's like, oh, get the fuck out, like that? Not that. It's like I assume if you climb or you do some other like internal related roles, it probably might be a little more lax. I'm not sure what was your decision maker.
I couldn't deploy anymore, and it wasn't a matter of like I personally could not deploy anymore. It was when I finished my deployment. It was 2012. We got into a good bit of firefights, but there's whole people that were deploying, and it's just kind of like, yeah, we just spent that whole year just kind of twiddling our thumbs, and so there were going to be less and less deployments, and it was just kind of like, I don't want to do Garrison Army. I don't want to spend a year, like, because also it's weird the way the military budget works. Sometimes we had so much ammo that we would do a spendex at the end of it, and it was just kind of like, yeah, bro, we need to shoot all this ammo. Like, it's this weird government budget thing, and I know JJ can attest to this, but it's just like, if you don't spend the amount of money that you got this year, they're going to give you less next year.
That's how food stamps work. That's why I tell everyone to apply. That's why. So I was telling him on the drive over, my team, when I worked for the state, was kind of unique in the sense that I was in Eagle Pass still, town of like 30,000 people max, right, at the time. But we were handling applications from Dallas, from San Antonio, from Austin, from Houston, because the state was doing this thing where, like, well, people that go to food banks need food stamps. Let's let people at the 4 largest food banks in the state apply for food stamps. So they sent over the applications, but they didn't send people to help guide them through it. So we had a massive backlog because, well, we were a 6-people team. We were recruiting from Eagle Pass. Like, we were based, I think there was another satellite team in San Antonio, but it was still like 3 or 5 other people. We weren't a huge team. Handling applications from much larger cities and a lot of them were not filled out properly. And the thing was that we couldn't just ignore those. We have to like make the effort to reach out and ask them like to follow up and interview and like clear up all these things before we get to the actual interview. And the reason for that was because, yeah, if we don't do that, whatever city they're based in, they're not going to get the full benefits.
Huh.
They're not going to get that money next time the budget comes around.
Hold up. Why you encouraging folks to get food stamps? I'm kidding.
Because it's there to help you. Like, it's not, there's this real bad stigma that you're like
A moocher, you're taking advantage of the good. No, it's there to help you. That money's already there. Any like dog whistle that people are saying that like you're stealing from government tax money or blah blah blah, that money's already spent. That money's already budgeted. It has to be used specifically for food stamps.
And that's what, and I think that's that's what's the most frustrating thing about when talking to people about like just like how those movements work. When something has been any business, and the government is also a business.
Yeah,
the government is also a business. Any organization, it isn't like, oh, JJ, because you saved money, now you can buy XYZ things. You can't do that.
No.
When something's allocated to something, like it talk to any company, when something's allocated a budget towards something, once that has been approved, that shit's just that's just there for that purpose, for that reason, right? And catch you sands anytime, Badgie. But like, but so it's fascinating when we were like, oh, like they're spending, you're spending and that
your tax dollars.
Yeah, spending money on things they probably shouldn't. And I'm like, not necessarily. That's not what happens, right? That's not how budgeting works. That's not how, like. I think it comes into a bigger play with like foreign policy stuff where it's like, oh, they're spending a lot of money externally. And it's like, yes, those budgets have to get approved, but trust me, that money's not just magically being like, oh, like there are foreign budgets and foreign affairs that they've probably allocated and not probably, they've made considerations for.
That's why not to get too political, but it's also just kind of one of those things where people are like co-sign cutting food stamps in half or expanding all these programs. And I'm like, we really just need to stop and look at everything and find out where all the holes are. Because, like, just to go back to the original point of the Army, sometimes we'd have a surplus of ammo where we're just shooting into the field for random amounts of time. Sometimes we had no ammo and we were just going point and click, like, the entire time. And it was just kind of like, I don't want to play pretend. I already did this for real. I will do this for real again, but I don't want to play pretend. At that point, it would have been for 16 more years.
Ooh. I want to double tap on that. But I just like it clicked in my head. I don't know if you've ever I'll put it like the last few jobs I've worked at, they've had they've had these perks, right? Like, so I'll use the one before last, or the last one, doesn't matter. It's like, oh, hey, you have this monthly work from home budget, this monthly fitness budget, right? Like where you can spend it on like, basically it's like, oh, you spend it on your bill, you can spend it on fitness stuff, whatever. Just because I didn't spend it doesn't mean I get that money next year. Doesn't mean that goes towards something else necessarily. Actually, a lot of places, to your point, are tracking it and being like, oh, to your point, if y'all aren't using this thing, then we just get rid of it. Like, we just get rid of it. Like, there's not enough people utilizing this thing that we've set aside. Like, because once it has been set, it's not easy to adjust finances and budgets like that. And I think that when people think of budgets, they think of spending. They think of like,
they think of your own personal wallet.
They think of how it works for you, right? It's like, hey, if I save money from X, I can spend it on Y. And not to say that doesn't happen in some cases, right? But when you're thinking of like, when you're thinking of just how it works you need to go to government, just business structures.
Yeah.
Higher extent, government. It's all the same principles
And
around
it's
there.
usually like, because one of the places I work, Zebra, they had a $100 stipend every month. And I just started using it on dumb shit at a certain point, just because I was like,
We gotta spend this.
yeah, we gotta spend this.
Well, I didn't use my perk at my last job, and I still think I'm dumb for that. Like, I use it for I use it at this job. I'm not stupid now. I was like at my last job, it's like I had that similar thing where I just could have been using it on a bill, and I was just like, I don't necessarily need it, but like I should have been using it.
And well, like at the Zebra, like just to go back to like, and it's just a weird thing to think of that it's just like not only is it budgeted. It's not budgeted individually towards you. It's budgeted towards like we're going to grow by 20%. The company's going to grow by 20 or 15% by the end of the year too. Like the amount of money they have for that, and if nobody uses it, of course they're going to fucking cut it.
You're going to cut it in a heartbeat because it can be again. The sources of allocation are usually on a annual basis, right? And sometimes it's longer. And in other other machinations, the other process of it is there's a reason why things work the way they do because of partnerships. And like you might be having a contract with another organization, like in a government sense, like
Man, that was one of the things that pissed me off a little bit when I was still working in tech, where it was just kind of like, y'all are just selling services to each other and living on borrowed time from your Series B.
Yeah.
Yes. A lot of places are like that.
I've applied at a lot of places that I'm like, what the fuck do you do? And then when I go to the interview, it's like, oh, we work with so-and-so and such and such. And in my head, I'm like, oh, you're the middleman. Eventually, those two other players are going to figure out that they don't need you.
Well, you know what's really fucking annoying on this point, and just random tangent, where it's just kind of like those companies are now getting commercial time during the NFL, and I'm like, why do I need a commercial for Acumatica? Like, I know what you do.
I don't think B2B organizations need to I'm like, bro, I get it, AWS. And I, like as a corporation, I get the market. I get what y'all are doing. That's not a B2C consumer ad. Like, motherfuckers are like, yeah, powered by AWS, next gen stats. And I'm like, that's cool. I know what AWS is. A lot of people in this room know what AWS is. A lot of people don't. It's like, they're not using cloud services. I was like, but that was my point.
Fucking
like,
Bob, the post office worker, is like,
man, I really need some AWS. Need some Amazon Web Services. It's like no, but the other part to that, to your point, right?
Yeah.
I actually use this as like so there's cases actually. Speaking of AWS, Google does this. Google Cloud does this as well. There are services like basically there is an allotted expectation of like how do I put it? Almost like money that they need to spend to make sure they meet their conditions for whatever their contract is. And if it goes towards, so a lot of companies will buy services that are in relation to those spends because it's like, cool, it's going to ultimately come out of a, like, again, budget that they don't have to pull from their own budget. It's like, hey, if I can buy this thing on Google Cloud like Google Cloud, Shopper, like if I can buy this on the AWS, like the AWS spend we have, then I can approve this software. I'm good. Like I don't have to worry, like, because if it goes outside of your if it goes outside of your budget, or if it goes like from your own internal budget, you're going to be a lot more stringent. So like when I was as a former salesman, like that's the best thing you can do. You'd be like, hey, hey, we're on AWS Marketplace. You can just buy us with your AWS dollars. You're like, oh, cool, bet. Like the amount of people who just like, oh, great, we just use this to get our burn down. Budgets don't work as straight line, especially with there's so many integral services in mind, and to take it to going back to the government extent. Yeah, that's why it doesn't. Like, it's like, yeah, there's things like that where it's like, hey, we have to use these things, or else we're just not gonna get enough. And you think it's like, oh well, why don't they just? And it is easier to be in a situation where the budget is approved from the get-go than it is from, hey, I need to go get additional budget approved. 9 times out of 10, that additional budget not gonna get approved. So you just want to make sure that your budgets and numbers look good at the start.
So one of the things I experienced, and this is when I came down to Fort Hood, is I did not know what a Bradley was. I was light infantry, which basically means you walk everywhere. And Bradleys are a thing that every general, everyone at the top is like, yeah, these things don't work 100%. Like they have a flat bottom, and if they run over an IED, it's just gonna kill everyone inside. So we will never use them in an actual war. But the plant that makes Bradleys is keeping a town in Ohio completely employed. Like they employ 30,000 people, and if we stop making the Bradley, that whole city is going to lose 30,000 jobs. So because of that, there's whole Bradley units, and I'm just kind of like, I don't.
You want to take one of our giant golf carts for a spin?
Now, that isn't to say there isn't an opportunity to, for efficiency, right? I think that because here's the problem. We're having a conversation about budgeting in this room. We're understanding the nuance of this is how budgets work. We care enough to where we're like, hey, you've lived through experiences with it. You've lived through experiences with it. I've lived through experience of it. Not everybody in places and positions actually go through that sort of understanding. Therefore, you understand how like efficiency can work and opportunity can work with those things. And so it's just a fascinating case where it's like, yeah, it's like, oh, we'd probably have a lot more money for a variety of services if we were to actually look and evaluate how our services are spending their money a little closer.
Well,
You'd get what you want if we were to just sit there and be like, no, we don't need to cut shit out. We need to look at that and have it on a table and be like, oh, damn. Some middle of bumfuck nowhere program, not program or service, hasn't been used since the 1970s, but it's still there. Stuff like that.
Well, I found a picture of it, Bradley. That vehicle has not been updated since the 1960s, 1970s, and that's an average-sized dude, probably, and they fit 8 dudes back there. Like
Feels like COD.
No, it's bad.
I've seen that in Black Ops.
But it's just weird, man, the way that you learn so many nuances about government spending and government programs, about things like that.
Just business spending too.
Yeah.
It's just like it's like you again, like it's so cool to like I guess it's like the benefit of having some working at some bigger organizations or even some startups as well. You kind of just see how things move. And then in this, like you've worked government, and you have that perspective. I've never worked a government job, but I just know like the correlation to those things. No, I'm not neither. No,
I've never worked a government job. I just spent my time at the puppy and pizzeria place.
Man, I just have to. I've sold the government. I've sold to governments though. So like I do have like. I've gone through approvals board to like sell to like government contracts.
Also, I don't want to turn anyone off to government work. Like,
no.
I literally work for the government right now.
No, like
I just my experience was unique and shitty.
on the same note, it's actually very fascinating because while I do not agree with how some government structures are run, there's a lot of benefits to working for a variety of different government organizations or being adjacent. I've talked about it before. My mom because she works for a hospital that's in a UT system, she's on the teacher retirement style. And I was like, that was news to me because the one thing that they don't fuck up with teachers is actually the retirement situation. You do like in Texas, let me be very particular. TRS in Texas is actually pretty damn good. So like, one of the, like it was, I'll be honest with you, it was a big weight lifted off my shoulders because I was like, oh, my mom's going to be super good.
Oh, me and my sister always like, one of us is going to have to take care of the parents. And I'm like, can we separate them? Like, I get one and you get the other? Like,
I'm like, yeah, I'm like, my mom would stay with me out of choice, not need. I'm just gonna have to bring in my dad. Like, I don't know. There's a pension and shit. I'm just like, I'm gonna bring you in. But it's fascinating, right?
Nah, it's a package deal with mine. I'd have to take both. But
one's already there.
One's right there, so it's on him.
Divorce, parents. Bum, 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 bum. Yeah, I was like,
Look at us talking about retirement and budgets. This is the most interesting episode of the
fuck
themexcellence.
happened? We used to be cool.
well, I just think these are.
I think it's what happens when you catch us on a Friday.
Oh, you guys aren't dumb fucks all the time. It's like y'all are grown adults with jobs.
Tuesday we were watching people. Tuesday we were watching somebody chug gravy. Today it's like, oh yes, the government budget.
401ks. What? So
Come here, young player. Sit under the learning tree.
let me talk to you. What? So, why didn't you choose the Air Force? But also on the flip side, what do you think the best perk coming out of that? Like, just working as part of the military system, and the worst perk.
So
The worst perk is dying. Okay.
true. So when it came to so Eagle Pass is a little bit
Pause.
weird.
Jojiro has a trust fund. Can I have that? I want to be a trust fund baby.
Your son will.
Actually, I said I want them niggas to know the struggle.
But so Eagle Pass was a small town, as JJ already said earlier. The Air Force recruiter was actually in Del Rio. He was 60 miles away. We didn't have a local Air Force recruiter, which is funny because
That's
the
so-
ROTC in Eagle Pass is from the Air Force.
Yeah.
So you were just like, damn, I got the bad end of the draw.
Well, when you walk into the mall, it's like Army or Marines, and they're right next to each other.
Pick your flavor.
You're like, Marines have to do shitty things. I'm gonna go over here.
Well,
A
Marines.
lot of people went to the Marines.
Well, Mexican. Like when you're.
What I mean by shitty things is swimming.
Well, there's a untold racism about the military, where Mexicans go to the Marines, Black people go to the Army, Filipinos and Asians go to the Navy, and then white people go to the Air Force.
Because they know what's up.
Yeah.
Both you and Banjo are anomalies.
Yes. But my dad was in the Army, and I was just kind of like, I think I would be really good at it, and I was really good at it. The things that make it a really good soldier are not what you think it would be. If you're the strongest and the fastest and anything like that, you actually tend to fizzle out a little bit. Like, it's good to be those things to a degree, but really your stat needs to be in like survival is the best way I can put it. Where it's like, it's not about how many push-ups you can do. It's how many push-ups you could do after 5 days of not eating, 3 hours of sleep, and like just eating MREs.
No.
Where even the brownie is bad.
Like I'm trying to think of one of the pinnacle things, like Ranger School. The whole time that you're at Ranger School, you just don't sleep. You're there just like, you get like an hour or two of sleep, and if the drill sergeants or the ranger sergeants catch you sleeping, it's like, well, sir, congratulations, you failed. Like, and it's all about mentally pushing yourself, which is why it's really good to do it when you're 18 to 22. Like, that's normally you don't sleep, even if you're an average college student, as you would attest to. But I thought I am really good at that, and I was really good at that. The only thing is that happened over time. And this is kind of one of those things where, out of all the things, to go back to an anime topic, people don't understand that, like, whenever you see your favorite athletes, like Christian McCaffrey, like the 49ers quarterback, running back, it's like, oh man, like that guy's paper thin, like he gets hurt all the time. It's like, no, he still made it to the NFL. Like, you do understand that, like, if you put that many reps and power on your body, like, you would literally be Deku trying to use 100% or 50% of All Might. Like,
Yeah, it's like when we say, man, an athlete is small, it's an athlete. They're not small. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're clowning from the observer perspective.
Yeah.
You even
like your body would explode doing that. Like, there's a nonstop, and this is the closest I will ever be to an athlete or anything like that. It's like there's a grind that happens. Like, if you're like a Christian McCaffrey or something, like if you're an athlete at 35, like it's like you're running 50 miles in a week. Like you're doing so many and it's funny because now that my sister is a massage therapist, she's like, yeah, bro, all your rubber bands, like they have only so many bends in your lifetime, and you're doing more of those bends. Like it's not a surprise that you look at a super athlete like Ronnie Coleman, and it's like, yeah, bro, that guy will never stand again.
Yeah. Or
other things there.
There's a couple other things.
Yeah, there's a lot of other things there.
even with like wrestlers, one, to attest to the observer perspective, my brother, when he was in college, he helped set up for a WWE show. He didn't set up the ring, but like he got all the staging and stuff.
He set up the ring. No, just give him the credit.
He did carry the stairs, like the stairs that they beat people with. He set up for WWE and a 2 Chainz concert, and he was like, it's funny that the WWE stairs were a lot lighter, and you would think that they'd be heavier because like they're all big dudes, which is the point I was trying to get to. Dolph Ziggler, Nick Namath, as he goes by now, if you see like any videos of him in WWE, he looks like a smaller guy because he's not like, this huge jacked like big ass John Cena or Goldberg type, or to go back to the steroid days, Hulk Hogan type. He's just like a lean, like he's muscular, but not like overly so. Like he's not like action figure like ripped. And he looks smaller compared to like a bunch of these other guys. That dude is like 6'7" or some shit.
It's like NBA. It's like NBA players.
Yeah.
You're like, oh yeah, man, he's short. Yeah, he's 6'6" compared to a 7-foot dude. They're still tall. Yeah.
Yeah, no, my brother, after they were setting up, they like still had some shit to do backstage and to like close out the show, like, tear everything down. And he was like, yeah, Dolph Ziggler came up to me and he's like, hey, bro, where's the bathroom around here? And he was like, over there. And he's like, thanks. He didn't ask him for a picture or an autograph or anything. The one thing he told me was like, dude, I see him on TV and he looks so tiny, but like in person, I was like,
you. Yeah. built like Zeus.
Yeah. Who's this Greek god coming towards me?
But it's just, and that goes into a whole conversation about how far removed we are from things sometimes, where I'm like, let it be very real. Like, any one of these athletes are freaks of nature. So every time you talk about them, they are still freaks of nature, externals in their class. And trust me, this will be, come to the Tuesday, I'll be the first one to ridicule a player. Josh Allen's huge. It's like, that is a big built man. Like, big and strong. So, you gotta, but we'll sit there and be like, oh yeah, they do X, Y, and Z. So Air Force, dope.
The Air Force is probably what I would recommend. The thing is that I was, I don't know, hot-headed, or I just wanted to do something that, when you're looking at, I'm like, what, 36 now? And then I was...
Looking back.
Yeah, when I was 21, I was like, man, I want to
be in the thick of it.
I want to be in the thick of it. I want to be a real man. I want to do all this other stuff. Like, I don't want to do it. And it's funny because I remember talking to my friend Proctor, because 3 of us were huge nerds. And Proctor was just kind of like, yeah, bro, I kind of ended up joining the Army because of all things Starship Troopers. And he was just kind of like, and it's funny because I'm smart enough to recognize that Starship Troopers is actually like, this is a facade.
Yeah.
You're not like, we're lying to you. This
They're
is
the
not.
baddies.
And when I at the time when I was thinking about joining, out of all the things that like I was just kind of like trying to figure out how to get my life back on track, kind of thing. It was like Star Trek came out, the first one. And I was like, I could see myself.
You like, I gotcha.
I like the movies, I've never seen the shows or anything like that. But Star Trek, the idea of like you grow out with a group of 8 or 9 people and try to help and fight and do all this other stuff. I was like, yeah, I want to do that. I want to go out and see some adventure. And it's funny because
you just need an African parent, and you're telling you, no army.
Well, the issue
no
is
military.
The issue is that my parents actually didn't want me to join So I just joined behind their back because I was an adult at that point.
Oh, they're like, don't do it.
Yeah. Well, my dad was like, I joined. I know you'd hate it. And I was like, well, I joined. And my mom was always just kind of like, because I'm the only boy, she's like, oh, you're too precious to be over there. And I'm like, well, I joined. So, but I do think that there is a lot of benefit. You do learn a lot of things. You see all sorts of different cultures. And then
It's a way to travel the world. I mean, that's how they sell you.
well, I think
So
I'm not one of
me.
I'm not one of those people that think that like we need to bring back
Pipers.
Dude, that Marine recruiter wanted me bad.
I mean, growing up in Eagle Pass, like
He's like, you're backstrip.
I mean, growing up in Eagle Pass, most of the people that I know, unless they joined the army, died there.
Yeah.
They died there. And even you, that you're like a super successful adult, you're only now getting to a point where you can travel, like in the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, I think it's like traveling consistently. Yeah, to your point, it takes a while before you feel comfortable doing it. B, I was a workaholic for a while, and I would have just and not all of us were, had the luxury of being like, hey, my family will just be like, yeah, like here's a gift, go travel and see the world. Like, yes, I grew up and my parents, took me there, but of my own volition, that shit was expensive. And then I just looked at my parents. I was like, how the fuck did y'all take us places? Good gosh.
Well, even then, like if I go to San Antonio, it's like, oh yeah, bro, I went to like Mexico and Monterrey all the fucking time. Like to them, it's something exotic, and it's something that I just grew up with, which is kind of like how I imagine Zim was for you to a degree. But like to go someplace different, like Thailand or Ireland, like I probably would not have thought that was imaginable unless I did everything perfectly, and I did not do everything perfectly. I wasn't at a point where I graduated college in 3 years and then pulled myself up. Like I was definitely at a point where I didn't know how college worked the first year, and that first year of failing that first semester hurt me a lot more than it did everyone else because I was there on scholarship. And then after that, I got a couple of loans, and then it was still kind of like I was barely clicking. And then I was like, I'm going to need to change my life. And that's why I joined the Army as well. It was like, that was a way to, I can pay for college and not be a burden to my family kind of thing.
Yeah. See, I didn't even go to college because I already knew, you
didn't see him in the Social Network. He was the one guy he's the fourth member. He got screwed.
So
he had an idea.
This could be more of an Eagle Pass thing or just, a generalization of the American educational system. But I didn't feel that high school prepared me at all for college.
It didn't. It doesn't at all.
So even in my junior or senior year when when everyone's telling you, oh, you got to start looking at schools and stuff, what the fuck are you talking about? Yesterday I barely found out what imaginary numbers are. What what do you mean I have to start looking at schools and shit
numbers that don't exist? I got you.
What schools? They're everything that you had to do to find a good school or find scholarships or research or everything, all that stuff was stuff that you had to do on your own time. And you had to actually go to your counselor, and at least with my class schedule and what I needed to just graduate high school, I didn't have a free period. There was no point in time where I could have gone and carved out that half hour or whatever that I would have needed to talk to the guidance counselor. So I didn't go to college immediately after I graduated. I took that year off, and then once I had that year to navigate the college system, I was like, okay, I kind of get this now. I'm gonna go to community college just because it's here and it's cheap and I won't be a burden on my family.
It's so fast because now we've pivoted into that angle. It's so fascinating when it comes to considerations especially schooling. And to your point, right, where it's like, hey, I chose not to go, and then ultimately the consideration is not being burned on my. Hey, that also contributed to my choice of school, because I was like, hey, I know my mom wants to help out. She's like that. Like my mom's big thing growing up was like, I got to get you, through college, and I fortunately, was able to figure things out halfway through. I was like, please stop, just.
Yeah.
And not to say she helped me out rent, saved my life. I was like cover rent for a while. But like you think about those things, right? Like I say, like for me, my angle was like and I grew up in closer to like a major city, right? Because I was in Riley, like, so I was right in the smack middle of Dallas. But it's still like not big. Like this is Texas. It's not. Like not a big place. Like why is it not big? So the school I went to, the exposure and what you think through is not big. They encourage college quite a bit, but when you I also taking a couple steps back. Our Army and Marine recruiter just was like, that boy's chunky. He can't. So that's why they skipped over me.
I joined the Army about 40 pounds overweight, and then as soon as I walked in, the drill sergeant grabbed me by the stomach and was like, "We love big dudes like you. So you're gonna go home."
I didn't see the Army guy. The Marine guy was like, "Not you."
Marine guy.
No, I'm talking about the drill sergeant when I landed. That drill sergeant was straight up like, "Because we get to change your life. When you leave here, your family's not going to recognize you," and they did it.
He's like, he's actually like, what's the best way to lose weight? Join the Army. But no, the considerations, right, were like, to your point of not being equipped to go, I think there's two things that I don't think America does a good job in its schooling system of doing. Educating
Teaching
you,
STEM for sure.
Yeah.
There's classes that you like.
That's the part of the flower that isn't pretty, right?
There's like so when I went to my first year of college was at UT Tyler. I was so impressed. Not impressed by a lot of things in Tyler, more so because like the classes that didn't make sense in college, I was like, oh, these make sense.
Yeah, now they make sense.
These make a lot more sense. I don't know if my brain was just more developed. I was just paying more attention, but there was something about like calculus clicked. What was it? Economics clicked. Like there's a bunch of classes that just, I was like, oh, maybe it was the way it was presented. Also, the bigger thing is, I get it. You want to have a well-versed averaging out of general knowledge bases, but because you're not specialized through
in anything,
you don't like. There's no consideration at the subjects you're better at and the subjects you're worse at, and no one like. And when you go to college, you have a lot more control over those things. But at that point, you're kind of screwed because if you're just not someone who's built
you can't figure it out. Yeah,
like you you don't have the opportunity to really digest those things. It's like
now it costs money for me to figure this shit out.
Yeah,
because I like so.
That's why I ultimately didn't finish and just like stopped going was because like. Okay, I don't see myself as an English major. I don't see myself as an art major. I sure as fuck can't draw. I can't play guitar worth a damn. These past 2 years have just been like wasted. I don't know what the fuck I'm good
want
at.
to do.
Yeah.
and I think that the delta for me was I was a competitive debater and I had written cases and I just had never thought like English as like me being good at. I just never thought about it. Like I'd always like my grades were always good, but like I just like it, like I was always like, okay, maybe STEM, mathematics adjacent, because I was always okay at that. I get to college and something in my head just I'm writing, like I can write an essay in 5 hours and have it done, like that type of thing.
Yeah.
And then there's a jump into where math stops being math, and I'm like, oh, this is getting harder. And, you know, I worked that part through, but I started being like, oh, dang, like, I actually don't hate, like, doing a lot of these English things.
Yeah.
Or, like, doing things where I'm just getting to communicate and, like, and on options. Like, and I was limited in terms of my, not my perspective, not necessarily my choice by say, but like whenever you're having to be like, talking to an ethnic parent, you're like, there's no realm where you're going to be an English major. There's no realm, or you're going to school for communications and all of those things. And I was like, cool, I can do STEM, I can do all these things, but just the imagination of those options, wasn't even something I thought was realistic. So I didn't explore some of those layers. That said, I guess the more limitless was out of state didn't exist to me. So I was like, right, that price point is absolutely nonsensical unless you're going to Oklahoma. In this case, OSU will pay for you to go there.
I was about to say a lot of the states, and I know this because of where I went to school in Texas Tech, where you're really close to New Mexico and Oklahoma, they actually won't charge you out of state tuition if you're neighboring. I, on the other hand, had the opportunity to go to Ohio State. I passed on it, but they really wanted me to go because at that point they had a really bad problem with Columbus being like overrun with neo-Nazis and stuff like that. And I was like, hey, we want to be as multicultural as we can. And I actually had 2 friends go to Ohio State, but I was always like, I could have been a Buckeye.
That's how I feel about it. Because the only thing I ever kicked myself in my foot for college-wise was just, I would have loved to explore be in a different environment for the 4 year. I love UT. Don't get it twisted. Like, it was awesome. But you don't get an opportunity to just dedicate your life to somewhere else.
I did get accepted to Michigan State as well, but that one didn't give me any scholarship. I was straight up would have just been there. All right, guys, we'll be right back as soon as this fire alarm turns off.
It's not that I don't want to learn.
It's like, we know!
That, to show my work, now I have to draw a fucking box? I suck at drawing!
Dude, I can proof out whole equations and that make more sense than this.
That's because you don't know how to do this.
But proving out equations are harder.
Because children are smarter than you. Don't get mad at the children.
They're not.
Let's see them budget a trip to Thailand.
Hey, after learning this math thing.
Yeah. Okay, time out.
If budgeting to trip to Thailand is easier than this, then they'll be able to do that.
You know what's funny is this is close to a Thailand math problem. I have $42. The conversion rate is 35. I have $1,470.
Okay, so first, right? All right. So time out.
Hang on.
Where's a piece of paper? And we got a piece. Sammy got a piece of paper.
He doesn't have a piece of paper because I had to write.
Let's see how long it takes. 3 semi-competent.
Way, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna do this traditional way. Give me the number.
Write that shit.
No.
42 times 35.
I'm doing the traditional way to get the numbers to make sense. All right. So time out. Because I want to see how I do it normally.
Is it like crisscross multiplying? Because that's how
Crisscross applesauce. 42 times 35, right?
Yeah, 42 times 35.
Crisscross multiplying works with fractions, where like you take the denominator of one and multiply it by the numerator of the other just to figure out which one's larger.
There's water in here. That's good. All right, so hey guys, while TJ is figuring out how to write with a pen, I just want you to know, so my daughter is in 4th grade, and she learned how to do lattice math. I don't know what lattice math is. She actually has a video recorded where she was explaining it, but as far as I understand, like I look at this grid, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
32 times 7. Okay. 32, 7. Where does the 4 come from?
2 times 7 is 14. 3 times 7 is 21.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so 2 times... And then 1 times 4 is 4. 2 times 2 is 2, so 2, 2, 4. Is that how it works?
I mean, this is an easier question than the other one that we were...
Yeah, I think that's what was throwing us off, that the other one had like 4 grids.
Yeah, this is just an easier one. It's 32 times 7, so it has less grids.
Yeah, it is crisscross multiplying. It's just, or at least that's how it makes sense in my head. It's 2 times 7, so that's where the 14 comes from. And then you just like divide that. And then 3 times 7 is 21, and you divide that. So then,
there we go.
Yeah.
I still think that's stupid. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't change anything. But I think that what that helps.
It's easier to visualize.
It's easier to visualize.
Yeah.
What did I say?
I don't think it's right. I don't think it's right. I just think that's another way of visualizing it.
Hey, old man Manatza.
I mean,
I did a whole competition for mental math, Doug.
Take
So
your
fuck
hands
this.
At Cloud.
well,
You're old now.
not all
We're all
advancements are like
Good.
yeah, because the reason a lot of kids don't have as high of reading competence now is because we changed the way we taught reading.
No, we just don't teach your kids.
No.
Or is it
They
because we
changed-
text
so-
things like lol and skibbity toilet?
No. It's because reading used to be taught through phonics, right? Like you sound out the word, blah blah blah.
Oh man, was it teach? Was it teach on phonics? Was that
Hooked on phonics.
Yeah.
At some point in time, after
Letter-
we
letter
went
munch.
through the elementary educational system or whatever,
Yeah.
they switched it up to this new. I don't know the name of the version or the new like teaching style, but I know it was developed through from someone in New Zealand, and the idea was that have you seen those memes online where it's like, if you can read this, then you are good. Only 90% of people can read this, or only
Yeah.
1% of people can read this, and the letters are all scrambled up. So they're teaching kids to essentially memorize words, right? They can't sound them out. They don't actually learn the word through sounding it out. They're kind of like teaching them to memorize the word. So if they see the first letter and the last letter, through context clues, they can figure out what the word is and they can read the sentence. That's the new like method of reading that has been taught. And we're now finding that, like, yeah, reading competency has gone down because when they encounter a new word, they were never taught to sound it out, so they don't know it. They just don't know it.
That's weird.
It is. But for a while,
It was effective.
it was effective. And it is effective at certain things, but you still need phonics for that variable, for that curveball of like, this is a word I've never encountered before.
Well, when you think of like other languages, right? Like depending on the language you're learning, it's just it's very fascinating because
I've heard. I don't know if it was science or just somebody talking out of their ass, but I've heard if you can learn 2 languages by the time you're 10, not even well, just know 2 languages, it's like your brain is unlocked to intake new data as opposed to people that are just one kind of language.
because I
That
think
answers a lot.
I think because I think that the delta there is or not the delta there. What's interesting is so when I think of like Japanese, right, where you're like
Yeah.
where it's particles of 2 or not particles of 2, like where it's like 2 letters combined, and except for one particular character, or at least in hiragana katakana, it's like let's use.
It's a syllables.
Sase susai so nani no nai no, right? So just using nani no nai no, like when you think of like the piecing and piecing of together, like that's all phonetic.
Yeah.
It's all phonetic. So you're like, cool. I know this letter and this thing that I'm looking at because it's phonetic. Kanji makes that all fucked up, but it's still like it's still a phonetically beat kind of language.
Yeah.
And then they just said, "Fuck English. Let's not make it phonetically."
Yeah.
There's so many phonetic-based languages that we just said, "Fuck it." Memorize words.
There's a
I've heard for non-English speakers, English is the hardest to learn
Yes,
because
yes.
It
The shit
breaks
don't make
all the
sense.
rules. Yeah.
it doesn't.
Like it's like everything is vosotros. Like
We still argue about
can't
what
use
the
that.
plural of octopus is.
octopi.
It's actually octopuses.
I used
So-
to say this, and I know it's wrong, but if the plural of goose is geese, is the plural of moose meese.
No.
Because why
It's-
not?
It's mongoose. The plural of mongoose is mongoose, though. But the reason for the octopuses one is because all the words that we pluralize that end in I, like cactus, cacti, cactus comes from Latin. Octopus comes from Greek. So it's using the Greek.
This man, I'm stupid.
I like etymology.
He's good at words.
I did waste an entire year pretending to be an English major.
you can code. So, I mean, at the end of the day, we all have different skills.
But
I don't
no,
know.
there's a
My strength is this. That's it. Just know how to sell. That's all I can do. In my brain.
So, when it comes to when we were talking about culture having an influence, the last job that I had that was selling, I was selling business services. And you know what it's like to be an account executive, for sure. And I was making about $90K. But when my mom tried to describe my job to my uncle, who owns a series of car washes, he was like, "Oh, so he's a glorified telemarketer."
It's like, man, that's why I tell people, it's like, oh, you want to get into tech sales? There ain't no difference between you selling cars and selling tech. You just got to know what you're selling.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, it's and I've tested that with people. I've been like, oh, break down like how you'd sell a car to me, right? I'd be like, break it down, just break down, and they'll be like, oh, exhaust, it can do X, Y, and Z. Why? I'm like, okay, why is this car better than this car? And I was like, cool. What you just did was you broke down your quote unquote solution with a singular car. You compared it to a competitor. You told me what was better. That's all I used to do. Ain't nothing special. It's just like, some people hear software and like, not to say it's easy. I'm just saying,
yeah.
If you got the beat for beat, you can do it. But yeah, no, my mom couldn't explain my job before at all, and now she's still couldn't. I'm like,
my mom definitely couldn't explain my job. I could barely explain my job. Like, the fuck is a drenai? I still don't know. I think it's some kind of space goat.
So to your point, right? Would you let your child or future children join any of the military service?
Small contract. That's my only rule. It would actually not even be nobody can join. I think it's one of those things that whether it's for you or not.
To clarify, what contract?
All contracts are 8 years. It's just a matter of how much reserve time you get. And I think you could actually probably join the Army where it's like 1 year or 2 years of active time. Then you'll be in the reserves for another 2 or 3 years. But everyone gets the stint where it's just like, hey, bro, if Russia shoots a nuke our way, you're the first person we call. Like a draft is way down the line. You know how people get worried every time Israel farts or Russia does something like, oh, man, a draft's coming up. It's like we got a couple stages before we get to a draft. And the first stage is calling people back up, that it's just like you're within that 8-year window.
You ever see that Tommy Lee Jones movie, The Hunted? Where he has to kill
one more ride?
Yeah.
Well, they did call people back at the height of the surge during Bush's presidency. Also, that's where stop loss and all that other stuff comes from that Obama stopped. But it all comes down to whenever you join, you are not guaranteed much for 8 years. Like, so if something happens, you're going to be there. But for the most part, if you say 3 or 4 years outside of a Russia-China situation, you'll probably be safe. And I think that gives you enough time to get all the benefits that you will get out of the Army. Literally, there's no difference between me being a combat veteran. Somebody that joins the Army today does 3 years, never deploys, and just filed taxes for 3 years. We get the same benefits, the same GI Bill, same VA benefits, same everything else. The only thing that is, I might get more VA benefits because I got fucked up while I was in the Army. My knees don't work as well as they did before. But I think 3 years is pretty good for most people to get like a good balance of it. I will never be one of those people that say, hey, the United States needs to bring back conscription like Sweden or Israel does. But I do think you get a lot of benefit from the Army, especially when it comes to just like after that college is free. And the new GI Bill post 9/11 provides a stipend for housing. So I worked, and all the work money just went to taking trips and having money for fun stuff.
So you spent your housing stipend?
My housing stipend went to housing, but I still worked during college. Don't know how to be without work for very long. There's just something about just being home. I'm just kind of like, I don't know. And then because I'm a little bit older than most of the people that were joined the military, because a lot of them joined straight out of high school, and I joined at 20. It's like I was already like cognizant of I don't want gaps in my resume. And now my resume, because it's a page long, is not going to cover 30 years or 20 years at this point.
So, sorry, two things. How the fuck does that gap method work when it's like numbers with two different, like the lattice method work? If it's like a 2 number and a 4 number, not the point. Second, I was like, that was a clean box.
Yeah.
Sorry to derail us, but what if it's 2 different length numbers? Oh, that's how that one works. Oh, okay, we're learning. Second. That's a fast, like, so you're like, hey, there's net pro, but you're not taking away from the cons that exist, right?
There's a lot of cons that exist.
And I mean ultimately, you could not come back. There is that.
Yeah.
That's a very real thing, unless you're in the Air Force, apparently, where everyone's copacetic and Gucci.
Well, I think 3 or 4 of the people that passed away when we were leaving Bagram in the Biden pullout, that day that everyone talks about, I think 3 or 4 of them were Air Force.
Like, I weren't prepared for this. I didn't know we did something.
They were MPs. No, I'm playing. They were actually MPs, I think, but that's a different story.
But like, in comparison, and I don't know if you like pay attention to some other places, but comparison to other countries and how their relationship with the military is America on the more positive note, the more middle ground, like in terms of benefits, just thinking through those kinds of things. Because you think of somewhere like Korea where they have to go to the military for 2 years. Like that's just...
Well, that doesn't... I feel like if you have conscription, it doesn't count kind of thing. Yeah. The thing is that you will care a lot more about...
Something you do.
Yeah.
Right.
You'll care a lot more about the politics of a country. Like, I know that it's very controversial, and I'm not super knowledgeable about South Korean politics, but I know that there's a huge portion of the population that wants to see South Korea and North Korea reunited, not through war, just in the fact of like one day, like people are people. But everybody that grew up during the Korean War, their generation of boomers is like, nah, fuck that, fuck those communist pieces of shit. So it just instills a lot of like, you're gonna care of what's going on kind of thing, and I feel like sometimes it's a negative because some people, it's two-folded, where it's just kind of like you get a lot of insight to how a lot of things work. You get a lot of insight to how world politics work. You get a lot of insight into a lot of things. But the thing that makes today different from when I joined is so many people don't know how to digest media. And that comes into a different conversation where I have a couple of friends that are Trump supporters, and I remember I pulled one aside recently, like 3 or 4 months ago, and I was just kind of like, I'm not that guy that argues with people on Facebook anymore. I just don't have the energy and bandwidth. My job is consuming. I have a daughter. I have all these things going on. I cannot argue with people for 3 or 4 hours on my phone anymore. I'm not that passionate, I guess, is what it comes down to. And then, in all honesty, when it comes down to the 2 options that most people care about, I'm like, yeah, I'm not passionate about it at all. But one thing is for true, not voting for the GOP candidate. But I just pulled him aside, and I was like, there ain't no way that, like, you understand that he's lying all the time, right? Like, that's not even, like...
Yeah.
Like, that's not even me being, like,
when
pro one side or the other.
Well, it's interesting because I think that, and I'm just going to say this from the perspective of, like, what I think veterans probably go through is, like, they just have a different mindset. It's like, there's like especially when it comes to some of the politics, right? It's like, I've seen a lot of veterans who've been like, yeah, no. Like, yeah, no.
Well,
it's when, like, and, you know, not to shit on anyone's parade, vote for who you want. I don't care. But when the guy's number one complaint is, yeah, I'm not doing that interview because they're going to fact check me. Like, that doesn't set off alarm bells. That doesn't make you, like, go back and think, like, wait, if you're lying about this, then
But just to go back to square one kind of thing, like I just got him to this point where I was just like, you're
right.
And I don't know how to say this, and because I was very blunt with him, and he was very blunt with me, and we have that kind of relationship, which is that you can have when you've been in the same shit with each other. But I was like, you're white trash from Oregon. Like, Donald Trump gives the least amount of shit about you. And I was just kind of like, why do you want to vote for? I mean, at that point, I think Biden was still running. He was just like, I just don't like how the economy has done X, Y, and Z. And at that point, I just roll my eyes and I'm like, the president has very little to do with the economy, actually. Yeah. But it was just kind of like, but he made this statement of realization that I was just kind of like, that's enough for me. And he said something along the lines that he's like, because he's at 100% disability. He doesn't have a job. Like, he just collects a check from the government every month. And it's like, I know for a fact that if Donald Trump ever had a one-on-one conversation with me for 5 minutes, he'd think I was a moocher and that I shouldn't exist. But I'm still going to vote for him.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That it's
so you're just inevitably the perspective of like just veterans and people who have gone through those kinds of things is just
it's just a straight up slice of America. Like you met Doc Moniz when we went to his party at he's liberal as all get out. It just comes out to one of those things where some people are really conservative from bumfuck South Dakota. Some people are straight up from Boston. And I remember when I first met that dude, he was like, this is the first time I held a rifle, and I'll probably never hold one again because I'm going straight back to Boston right after my service is done. Like,
oh, you don't get to take one home?
No, this is in Sweden.
You had all that ammo, though.
But I do think you can't. And I mean, I'm certain there's definitely people who are, like, don't get it twisted, but I really don't think, like, the one thing that I'm pretty seen consistent is like it's hard to go through the army and just maintain hating everybody.
Some people do. They move out to the woods and do weird things, but it just comes.
You know. What I mean.
Oh, okay. You mean racism?
Yeah. There's caveats.
So I am very lucky in the sense that I was in a very multicultural unit. There are certain places that you can end up that, like, you won't see a person of a different color. And that's not to say that it's all white. That's to say, like, I would say, like, 80% of the supply units in the Army, 100% black. You won't see someone that's not black in there. And on the other side of the coin, MPs, probably 70-80% white. Like, it's just...
You didn't even have to tell me that.
And it's just kind of one of those things...
I've seen Jack Reacher.
It's just kind of one of those things where it can foster those mentalities kind of thing. But when you going back to what you told me about, like, hey, would you let your kid join the military or anything like that? You have to join something more, because if you're the average soldier, average Navy man, and we've seen this across even with Banjo, like, you're with the lowest common denominator of a lot of bad influences that you could have. Versus me, I was a paratrooper. Like, you have to try to do that. I tried to be a U.S. Ranger, but I just couldn't. Honestly, when it came to being a U.S. Ranger, the thing that I failed at is I couldn't run 5 miles under, I believe it was 40 or 45 minutes, whatever it was. I didn't have that kind of endurance.
You were like, my one Achilles heel, cardio.
Push-ups, sit-ups, I got that for days. Pull-ups, I got that, but...
all right, I would have made it past pull-ups probably, but the 5K...
It was 8-minute miles, I believe, or 7-minute miles, but it was 5 of them. And I just remember when you added that up, I was like, I don't have the kind of body that can run 5 miles at that pace.
Like this.
Yeah.
At peak JJ, I could have probably done it.
I could do it eventually after the Army, but not... I mean, while I was in the Army at a certain point, I could have done it. But, I mean...
At the time you were doing
pull-ups I suck at, though. Like, I wouldn't have made it past the pull-ups.
Well, remember, I joined overweight on top of that. Though, I mean, I did lose weight at that point, because Ranger School is after basic. But still, I was never going to have the...
Clarify what Rangers are, please.
U.S. Army Rangers
Lead the
are
way.
they're
They're filled with power.
they're like the SWAT team of the Army branch. They just show up and they do a lot of clearing buildings and things like that. They're pretty much the SWAT. SF, you wouldn't know it based on like watching movies like Rambo and stuff like that, but they're not actually like the best fighters or things like that. What they are is really fucking smart to begin with. They can speak 2 or 3 different languages. Their whole thing is like, we're going to go in and like, so there's a lot of really interesting stories when we went to invade Afghanistan. They were like, yeah, no, dude, we fucking hate the Taliban. And it's like, cool. And it was just straight up like a Metal Gear Solid. Like they were riding in horses and stuff and teaching the insurgents how to fight against the Taliban and things like that. Like, you have to be smart because you have to speak the language. You have to be culturally appropriate, which is actually something that I failed at. And the one time that I got to have a talk with the village elder, and
That sounds like something you'd fuck up. like I immediately was like, that 100% is something.
oh
I'd
no,
fuck
no,
up
I
at.
100% fucked it up. But and then you also have to be. You are really good.
I probably would have fucked it up too. Like,
Yeah.
I like. Even
Nah.
if I'm on the other side of the token, if he's like, no, I'm good, I'd be like, yeah, give me that, and it's straight poison.
No. I fucked it up by being like. So at the end of the day, he said I was disrespectful, but he was still from a friendly village, so it didn't mean anything. But I still fucked it up because he was like, we all want to have a good life. We all want to go around and get married and have as many kids as possible. And I was like, oh, in America, we do the opposite. We try to put off marriage and having kids for as long as we could. And he was cool with it. But at the end of the day, he told my translators, like, yeah, that dude is rude as fuck. I don't like that guy.
I'm siding with the Taliban.
That sounds like something.
But yeah, no, there is racist elements for sure, and there's gang elements too. Like Fort Hood is a terrible place.
Oh no, yeah, that's so the part where I wanted to interject, not necessarily with the racism part, but there is a
Got something to say?
huh?
Huh?
No, not with the racism part, but like kind of tangentially related. There is a big thing. I don't know what the right term would be, but like people higher ups have started to notice, like, hey man, there's a lot of fucking gang members in the army, like, and not just the army. Like they're joining every military branch, right? Like they're all signing up and serving. We're teaching them all these skills that just makes them better gang members. Like, just makes them more
I'm a man of
efficient.
many skills.
Yeah.
I saw that a lot in Gangland when I used to watch it.
Yeah. Part of it, like the reason that I say it's tangentially related to like racism is because like obviously skinheads are joining to, because they're fascists. So, of course they're going to join. But it's not just skinheads. It's like, yeah, there's MS-13 members. There's fucking, Bloods and Crips in the army, in the military branches. Part of the problem is that, like, how do you define a gang? Like, there's no real, like, good legal definition for it.
And then on the inverse, like, it's like, hey, you're offering yourself up to the military. Like,
Yeah.
America's not
Like-
going to say no.
Well, it's funny because one of the first. I didn't have a lot of racist experience. Mostly what I experienced was a lot of friendly racism, as weird as that is to say. But remember, I did join the Army in 2009, like off Harold and Kumar and things like that, where it's like, it's funny to be like, just point out these differences. And then it's just like, at a certain point, I would say about 2014, it just stopped being funny. But it was when I joined, kind of thing. Everyone laughed at Scary Movie and shit like that. But I did meet a dude, and he was a Marine that was going through airborne school, and I think he eventually got kicked out while I was in airborne school, but he was straight up racist, and he was straight up an Aryan person. And the way he would word it, he was not trying to be like an asshole about it, but he was just like, I just think like the world is a better place when it stays diverse, and we shouldn't mix. Like, it's like, of course, white people should hang out with other white people, and black people should hang out with other black people, Mexicans with other Mexicans. And everyone was like, huh. Yeah, that's fucked up. Like,
I gotta just hang out with who I want to.
yeah, pretty much. Like, that's the whole idea of, like, my friend, or the person that taught me the most about the Army was Longville. And he is legitimately pretty much white trash, but from South Dakota. But he does, like, if the Captain America serum existed, that's who I would stab with it. Like, he was always open and friendly to people. He never actually said anything racist. He just made racist comments, like, in the joke kind of way. Like I said, I joined the Army in 2009. Like, when
Things were more low. Yeah.
But he always helped people out. He always went out of his way. Whenever people legitimately were racist to, like, Terrell, he was one of the first people to be like, no, bro, he's really good. Like, he's a good soldier. He's just kind of, like, hard-headed, which Terrell was. Terrell was always a weird side tangent. A dude that smoked a pack a day and could run a 4-minute mile.
God damn.
Because his lungs have been trained. Some people's deteriorate. His get stronger.
And
That is something that I've heard, that, like, if you smoke a cigarette, like, the night before a marathon, you'll actually probably do better. But, like, just one.
well, Terrell was this weird case where he was a collegiate athlete, but he didn't take college serious at all, so they kicked him out for grades. So one of the things I learned through the military that will probably only learn if you ever take up combat sports is, like, we're not built the same at all. There are some people that can never touch a weight in their life and will instantly be 2 or 3 times stronger than you.
Yeah.
And then when those people do lift up weights, they're going to be in the NFL or UFC. Like, that's just, some people just have different genetics, and that's how it works.
That's why when you're thinking about kids,
Yeah.
shop for genetics, not personality. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. That's eugenics. Don't do that.
But Longville was one of the coolest people. I mean, he's still alive, and we talk once in a while, but he was one of the coolest, legitimately country strong as fuck, and always stood up for people kind of thing that I'm like, that dude was dope. And then the racist Marine dude, like, yeah, that dude was a piece of shit.
Well, that's a question for you. Well, is one thing, maybe like from and you know what? Hey, we'll just count this as our Veterans Day special. It's a month early. It's like, when's Veterans Day? Like the November 11th?
I think so.
Right. What do you do? Do you like stand outside and like a cape comes down? Like you're like America. Like,
I've seen.
No, I go to Texas Roadhouse and get a free steak.
like every
I
veteran-
like that, like, now in this modern age, like, even me who's not served or anything, I get memes that are like, this is the map, boys. This is where we're hitting up, like, to get our free Veterans Day meals.
It's like Marcos gets fed that day.
You know,
That's his bulk day.
What's funny is I've never really taken advantage of it, but this is.
Banjo has. That's probably why, like, I'm getting those memes, because Banjo is always like big on those. Like, yeah, man,
But, like, this is
the best perk of the
Applebee's.
job.
Applebee's, White Castle, House and Steak, Golden Corral, Freddy's Frozen. These are all, like, the free shit you can get. Like, look how small the bar is over here.
Yeah, no, it's everyone. I'm not surprised by Freddy. Freddy served too.
Red Lobster, Red Robin, Sheet, Shark.
I'd be a fool. You're making a real good convincing for me. To try me on.
Yeah, bro. If the Marine guy had told me that, I'd be like, bruh.
He's like, hey, no, fuck that. You'll never go hungry.
I will learn how to do 3 pull-ups. Like, come on.
That's like my final boss. Pull-ups. I've been strong.
I got to
thin,
2.
everything. Pull-ups are my worst thing ever.
I did 2, and then he was like, on that 3rd one, you kind of kicked up a lot, and I did. Like, I almost broke the window.
So let me kick.
But he was like, I mean, if you work on it.
I was like, but no, I don't want to.
I was about to say, like, if you can do 1 pull-up, you can learn how to do 5, is how I feel it works.
Yeah.
Because once you learn, it's not pulling yourself up, it's pulling your wings down.
Yeah. No, yeah, and that's how that's how people break it down online now. It's like you have to do negatives, where it's like, just so you can learn the actual movement, like what your body's really doing.
See these shoulders? These shoulders look like they're built for pull-ups. They're not.
What worked for me was I got a pull-up bar, and I got one of those that like you had to like screw into the door frame, because my door didn't have like any what's the framing. So I had to actually like put it.
Oh my God.
I had to actually do work. So I was like, that's never coming down. That's staying up there.
That's staying there for the next guest.
Yeah. And well, this was back when I lived in Eagle Pass.
Oh, gotcha.
So like it was in the frame of my room door, and I wasn't 100% dedicated to it. I wasn't like trying like every day, blah blah blah, because I could only do the two, and I was like, it doesn't really feel like I'm doing anything, like I'm not working anything out. But what worked for me was, since I was too lazy to unscrew it or take it down or anything, I left it up for like a week, and then just through the course of life, right, like I spent most of my time in my room, but I'd get up, go to the living room or go to the bathroom or whatever. I was like, okay, every time I cross the threshold, I'm gonna do two. Doesn't matter how long like I rested in between. If I was
You're just like, I'm gonna do
my two.
It takes dedication that I don't want to do.
Yeah. Well, it was a way to trick myself into actually using it. And that kind of
You're like, it'll go up there and rot.
You know what's funny is in airborne school, you can't enter a building without doing 10. So you were just...
Yeah.
Marcos. And actually, JJ, I have a different question for you.
Okay.
But in the second question, I think about you.
Yes, sir.
Thing that you change about just one thing you change about the military structure and or system and or just from your army experience, where that's like, hey, a little more education time, a little more like whatever you want, but one thing.
Fuck. There's so many things that are rushing to my brain, kind of thing. I would probably say
Better food
that one doesn't matter to me. Just because, in the sense that it's like
when you're out there.
Yes.
you learn to do without, kind of thing. That has never been a problem for me. It's more the army puts you in a lot of like really shitty like situations that don't involve shit. Like it's just kind of like nobody's going home today until 7:00 p.m. and nobody knows why. Like there's no clear lines of communication sometimes. So if there's something, transparency would be the thing that I would fix. And I understand that it's where I learned a lot about leadership. Like, cause there's two different types of leaders every time you run into those situations. So my staff sergeant, Gene Jones, was the opposite. He'd be like, hey guys, they're not letting us go home today until we do biometric scans on 80 people. That's all we need to do. And it sucks because you're just waiting at a random crossroads, and that could be anywhere from an hour to 9 hours. It's just whenever 100 people cross that road, you're going to biometrically scan all of them and make sure they're not terrorists. And the other hand is like, because not everyone's biometrically scanning. For the most part, I was basically a sniper in the Army. I wasn't actually a sniper. I was a heavy machine gunner. But it's a sniper because I'm up on a fucking perch somewhere with a gun that can shoot 1,200 yards away. But it ends up being one of those things where it's just like, bro, why am I waiting out here? Like, I have no communication with them. So there was no transparency kind of thing. And some people will just straight up be like, because I told you to. So shut the fuck up and go back up on that mountain, or just don't check on the radio. And it's just like, that's where I learned about like, and we'll see it even sometimes here in this podcast, sometimes here at work, where it's just like, there's some people that are like, it's going to be this way because this is how I want it to be. And then there's just kind of like the way you lead the themexcellence. Like, Jordan has had several ideas, and you've been like, hey, bro, I like your idea. I like your energy, but let's table that until it's more accessible or a better time or a better thing. Like there's some sort of like transparency there that some people, when they don't know how to lead, like it creates like you're doing this because I told you so, which when you're leading a group of 30, 18-year-olds, I get it. Like it's the easy thing to do.
Yeah. But when there's like, but you're ultimately also instilling that sort of leadership values into them as well.
Yeah.
Unless they learn from that. That's an interesting thing.
Because the Army has a lot of bad leaders, as what it comes down to at the end of the day. And we get by because we have really good logistics. We have the best capability and we have a lot of dudes with a lot of heart. But at the end of the day, if we had great leaders, like the Army, for the first step to getting promoted is not that you're great at leading people. It's not that you're great at motivating people. Not that you're great at anything that actually involves being a soldier. It's like, oh, he gets the highest PT score. That's the first step to going from going from specialist to sergeant. It's not that you're smart. In fact, it's probably a benefit that you're dumb most of the time. So it's just a little bit more focus on leadership would probably be my best thing, because we probably lose a lot of good soldiers every year in the same way that you lose a lot of good employees in a lot of places because there's no leadership. If you have a bad manager, no matter what job you have, you'll quit that shit as soon. You'll be on LinkedIn that night.
Yeah.
So, and I guess caveat to that point, you talk about quitting. Can you quit the Army?
You cannot quit. You can
shoot yourself in the foot.
No. The easiest way to get kicked out is a DUI.
I got that.
That's
Don't threaten me with a good time.
wild.
Jokes. Don't do that.
Don't do
please
that,
be
please.
responsible.
No. There's no way you can't leave your contract. But you can. I don't know. You end up in all sorts of places where it's just like you go with all the shitty kids to do shitty things. There's always that kind of thing. But no, you can't quit. I think you can get chaptered out, but I mean that goes into another thing that I wish I could change, like the Army taking mental health seriously. But I mean, the normal society doesn't take mental health seriously.
Yeah, we've got work to do on all fronts.
But it's just kind of like, hey man, I'm upset because of this, because of that, and then it'll just be like, all right, bud, you're still gonna have to do your day-to-day grind, and good luck, like kind of thing. And the best thing that you can end up with, because you won't end up with a diagnosis or any kind of pills or any kind of therapy, is just kind of like, hey, you don't give that guy a weapon. That's the best you'll end up if you're depressed or some sort of mental problems. So you'll go. There's guys that'll go their whole Army career not saying anything, and then one day snap and I don't know, shoot up Fort Hood, I guess.
Well, thank you for. It felt like an interview for Marcos, but these clips will be saved for Veterans Day. I was like, and this was just something that happened in National Conference. Oh, y'all, Random Excellence, don't worry. If y'all want a quick one, I've been playing Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. It's been awesome. Anyone who wants to get some hands, holla at me. But my last question for you. My last question for you, and I guess this counts for you. Not Army related, but would y'all ever permanently live in Eagle Pass again?
No.
You're a hard no.
I'm a hard
He's
no.
Well, maybe.
If the circumstances were right, I'd go back. And by circumstances are right, that probably means a kid, like on my end, because Eagle Pass is pretty quiet. It's pretty simple. It's pretty easy. But I would encourage the kid to like explore things that aren't taught in school. Like I would have to make that effort as a parent to be like, hey dude, like it's real cool that you're learning like lettuce math or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, fucking nonsensical bullshit. Fucking just do it in your head, and the work you gotta show, you can do it on paper without all that lettuce.
Yeah, it's real cool that you're learning all that, but fucking engineering's also a thing. Have you ever put together a PC? Do you want to help daddy put together a PC? It's like Legos. It's just big. And electricity runs through it. Like, those are the types of things that I think that if I had, right, like, because, you know, my parents, I love them, and I don't blame them for anything in terms of, like, where I am now. I can only be grateful to them, right?
Parents teach you what they know.
Right, yeah. And my dad dropped out of school in high school. Like, he didn't finish high school, and my mom didn't finish high school either. So, and on top of that, you know, they were around at a time where the typewriter was still like the most advanced technology there was, right? Like, we didn't have computers. So they couldn't have foreseen like
That.
where we are now with fucking cloud computing, AI, all this stuff. They wouldn't have been able to nurture that interest in me. They wouldn't.
I try imagining explaining to Facebook to my grandpa sometimes.
Right, yeah. Like, I'm pretty sure my grandma just thinks that Facebook is where the cat videos are.
My mom's an Instagram pro. This lady isn't. She's not the most technically advanced person, but I just laugh because my mom
one of those
navigated that.
It's one of those things where like Eagle Pass is secure. So like if I had a child, would I want that extra security? Probably yes. Could I be talked out of it? Easily.
You're like, it's like, hey, if I'm not opposed to it if it's something that was like a driving force,
Right.
but it's not your like first thought and your initial instinct.
Right. Yeah.
Gotcha.
No, just because like I know that if I grew up just like looking at my family that grew up elsewhere, right? Like my cousins that were raised in Dallas in the DFW area, or my cousins that were raised in San Antonio, they had way more options, way more exposure to stuff. Like I have a cousin that works for Lockheed Martin. He makes the guns that Marco shot.
Probably not the guns, but the jets I jumped out.
Yeah, like I think he builds both actually, or the rockets that they shoot out of. He makes a lot of shit. But yeah, like there's no Lockheed Martin plant in Eagle Pass. There's not even a fucking airport in Eagle Pass. So like,
There's
It's the
a
closest airport.
Del
Rio.
Yeah. Well,
We have Maverick Arms that make shotguns.
yeah. Del Rio now. So there used to be a Del Rio airport, and it was shut down like probably in the early 90s. And then they just brought it back, and they were like, we're doing small time flights. Like if you're flying to Dallas, like you can either drive to Dallas for 7 hours or you can fly with us for 2. Like it's small aircraft, small airport, and it just does in-state flights. But yeah, it's one of those things where like Eagle Pass is very secure, it's very safe, it's very small. You get that small town feel. I would be totally comfortable letting my kid like come in when the streetlights come on, like walk home. It's fine. But at the same time, you don't get exposure to a lot of the options in the career world. Like it's very blue collar, it's very, you either learn to drive a truck or you learn accounting, and that's it.
It's like, hey, that kid does taxes. Or I feel you. That's fascinating. Because I mean, I'm more in the U camp of notice that.
Don't go back to your hometown ever. Like that's my thing, where it's just kind of like it's a great pond. JJ is 100% right. It's safe. You'll know all your neighbors, kind of thing. But it's also like you already grew up there. You already did it, and
Well, I'm more selfish. I'm like, if I raise my kid in like fucking Italy, then now I have a place I can come to when I want to come to Italy, you know? like plant your seeds to grow elsewhere so you have vacation homes. Think about it. Kids are investment.
You were born in Toronto.
Like you should already be like anytime your daughter comes, you're like, yes, math, Toronto. Math.
Then I won't.
Vancouver.
Then I won't have to worry about my health care when I get old.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Think about it. Well, yeah, this was a fun conversation, gentlemen. Thank you for letting me almost interview you.
Oh no, it was fun.
Yeah.
I hope the audience had fun with it. You were promised the excellent in Adam Excellence, and instead you got a kicking with the Compas.
A kicking with the Compancy Blacks. Yeah, it was a fun time. No, I'm kidding. It was but no, this is one of those instances where
We learned math. We
We learned how to lattice.
yeah, but I also feel like honestly, like I said, you guys got a vet show early, and save these clips for Veterans Day. All right.
He doesn't do that anymore. That's key.
I know, but he handles communication with kids.
He's gonna be so happy when I'm like, "Hey, bro, no clips."
Yeah, this show's for the
just
future.
clean up the audio.
Honestly, this is a thing. Should have not done a stream of this. Should have just saved it. Nah, but thank y'all for letting us, just chit chat. And I think what's our next show? It's the
Sports show. We'll be on that on Tuesday.
Yeah, that'll be my either saddest or happiest show.
Depends on the Lions Cowboys game.
Really does, and my prize picks. All right, y'all. We'll catch y'all on the flip.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
We didn't even do an intro.
We didn't.
Oh wait, hold up. Pause it. Pause for a second. I'm TJ.
I'm JJ.
And I'm MJ.
No. Turn it back on. You don't get to do that. You're Marco. Can't force it.
I didn't force it. I just tapped it in. My middle name really is with a J.
He's got the J of power. Like,
No. It's earned. Yeah, the MJ moniker's harder to earn.
Damn, what quest do I gotta go on now?
you got to play basketball real good, bro.
Fuck.
Or sing and dance real good.
Fuck.
Yeah. But to be honest, it's like the same side quest that you have to do, when you're unemployed, right? It's
What's funny
it's
is
the side quest from earlier.
I was given side quests when I was at ACL. It was hilarious.
It's like, oh, right. You ran into an NPC, a.k.a. Goldman.
Hey, man.
I straight up tackled him in a gay cowboy show. It was pretty funny.
Oh, my God. I got the hiccups. Now I got to go.
All right, good night, guys.
Oh,
Good night, everybody.
They hear this. I've got the hiccups. Free me.